Chapter 365. Ah! With a short cry, the spirit-severing stage cultivator was trampled into a pile of meat paste by the beasts. His body collapsed on the spot. Fortunately, cultivators did not die so easily. Even if their bodies were destroyed, they still had their nascent souls. As a matter of fact, the nascent soul immediately escaped from his body. However, the unlucky cultivator immediately realized that even his nascent soul was not safe in front of the beasts. A strange spider with 3 heads and a human face pounced over. It spat out a ball of black spider silk and wrapped around the nascent soul. It pulled the nascent soul in front of it and swallowed it. In just a few breaths of time, a spirit-severing stage cultivator, who was considered to be one of the top cultivators in the outside world, had been killed by a savage beast. Even a nascent soul cultivator couldn't escape. He couldn't be more dead. From a beginning to the end, he did not even launch a decent attack. These beasts were truly terrifying. All the savage beasts within the radius of 10,000 miles gathered together and rushed towards the location of the 2 strange birds. It seemed that the parents of the strange egg that was eaten by Sakura were not ordinary savage beasts, but the kings of savage beasts within the radius of 10,000 miles. At this moment, no less than 100 cultivators had died in the hands of the beasts. Each and every one of them died mysteriously. Because of Tian, they were directly implicated. As soon as they entered the pagoda, they had not yet adapted to the gravity of the pagoda and collided with the beasts. Death was the only outcome. The overwhelming number of savage beasts, some running on the ground, some flying in the sky, all gathered in front of the ancient tree that Sakura was hiding in from all directions. On the tree, when the 2 strange birds were constantly wailing, they were filled with boundless anger as they loudly berated the surrounding savage beasts, as if they were giving some kind of order. After a short moment, these strange beasts immediately rushed out in groups, just like they had appeared. As they left, their sharp eyes scanned the surroundings as if they were looking for something. Following that, a series of violent explosions erupted in various places. The sounds of fighting were endless. As long as they encountered an outsider who was not a beast, they would fight without mercy. A large number of cultivators died under the fury of the beasts. Myriad sword arts exterminate. A massive, murderous aura burst out from his body, and a layer of coldness appeared between his eyebrows. Sword fingers shot out from Tian Shuzi's hand, aiming at the 6 strange birds with 3 heads who were about to attack him. He drew a mysterious path in the air, shooting out tens of thousands of beams of sword chi. He shouted, and the power of the heaven and earth gathered around him. Those tens of thousands of beams of sword chi used a strange method to guide the power of the heaven and earth to his body. In a flash, the sword chi turned into ancient swords with sharp sword lights. They circled around him, and under his command, they were like a rain of swords that blotted out the sky and covered the earth as they charged towards the 6 strange birds. Chi, chi, chi. Amidst a series of shrill sounds, the 6 strange birds were completely submerged in the rain of swords. In an instant, they were pierced by tens of thousands of swords, and their entire bodies were sliced into countless pieces. Let's go quickly. These beasts are as terrifying as the records say. This is only the first level. I need to use 70% of my strength to kill these 6 strange birds. Tian Shuzi's eyes flashed with a shrewd light. He brought Zhong Yunfei with him and rushed out. Although he didn't know what was going on, all the beasts in the surrounding 10,000 miles were frantically searching every inch of the land. Once they encountered an outsider, they would attack without hesitation. This kind of attack was very terrifying. Although Tian Shuzi's cultivation was undoubtedly at the body integration stage, he could clearly feel the terror of the beasts here. Without hesitation, he turned around and left. At the edge of the strange bird's territory, Bai Hu, who was dressed in a palace dress, raised her head and looked in the direction where the shrill cries came from. She said suspiciously to herself, "Who caused such a big commotion? Just now, I seemed to feel that there was a demon in that direction, but it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Could it be caused by Tian again?" After learning of the bizarre happenings in the heaven-reaching tower, she had already forged a set of jade amulets to communicate with one another in the shortest amount of time possible. Just a moment ago, she had sensed the presence of a jade amulet in the area where the savage beasts were rampaging. However, in the blink of an eye, the jade amulet disappeared once more. Just as she was wondering, a figure flashed in her mind. A figure inexplicably appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. He was a little suspicious. Was he the one who caused such a huge commotion? But after thinking for a while, she shook her head. Even if it was him, she couldn't rush in now. If she had to face the crazy beast, she would probably die miserably here. Fine, I'll go in and take a look. I hope it's not that enemy. After pondering for a while, Bai Hu's perfect body suddenly disappeared from the air silently. Her entire body seemed to have turned into nothingness in an instant. Invisibility. This was not an ordinary invisibility. It was a gift from heaven and earth when she evolved into a foxtail. This type of invisibility was even more mysterious than ordinary invisibility spells. Once invisibility was achieved, even the body, breath, and everything else would be hidden. The body would turn into nothingness and have a kind of spatial power. Once invisibility was achieved, it was as if the person was hidden in another space. This kind of magical power was the best ability to save one's life. After Sakura swallowed the strange egg, the scene of the other savage beast becoming incomparably furious was naturally seen by the majority of the cultivators who entered. Although each and every one of them had their suspicions, they all left this area with their fastest speed one after another. In fact, the world in the Tower of Babel was not much different from the outside world. It was just that the sun, moon, and stars were missing in the sky. But the strange thing was that this world still had light, day and night. There were jungles, deserts, and even seawater everywhere. Whatever the outside world had, there seemed to be no lack of here. It was as if they were in a completely different world. It was just that in this world, there were all kinds of strange beasts everywhere. To this world, Tion and the others were outsiders. They were aliens. Tion could not care about these for the time being, because he swallowed a strange egg and ate the entire egg into his stomach. A tyrannical, wild, and fierce energy emerged from his body and kept destroying every inch of his flesh. He had no choice but to hide in the exquisite pagoda and use the pagoda's power to reverse time and space to hide himself. Then, he had to think of a way to tame this incomparably huge energy. Savage beast eggs. Those two strange birds were obviously not ordinary savage beasts. The eggs they laid were about to give birth to a new life. The energy inside was definitely incomparably pure and huge. But all of a sudden, it all entered Tian's stomach. One could imagine how terrifying this energy would be when it exploded. If he was not of the demon clan, if he did not have such a strong demon body, there was a 90% chance that when this energy exploded, his entire body would be like a balloon, exploding into pieces with a bang. Even so, his body was still in an extremely miserable state. Now that he was concentrating on operating his cultivation technique, he used the royal true force to constantly surround and block the wantonly destroying strange energy in his body. The royal true force was indeed a rare, peerless true force in the world. In terms of level, there were very few in the world that could be compared to it. But that savage beast energy was extremely tyrannical and stubborn. Even if it was not a match for the royal true force, it would still fiercely wander around in other places. It was difficult to surround it in a short period of time. It was very difficult to tame. Today, I don't believe that I can't tame you. Heaven Grey Demon Abode, I'll let you have a taste of the power of the Heaven Grey Demon Abode today. Others may not be able to do anything to you, but my Heaven Grey Demon Abode is the best at refining different kinds of energy. Seeing that even with the strength of the royal true force, it was difficult to tame this massive energy that belonged to the savage beast in a short period of time, Tian's heart suddenly became ruthless. Fight it out. With a thought, he saw that in the jade cauldron in the demon abode, there was a black liquid. On the black liquid, there was a third-grade black lotus floating. On the black lotus, mysterious imprints mysteriously appeared. It slowly rotated, continuously swallowing the liquid below into the black lotus. At this moment, the black lotus, which was originally rotating at a normal speed, suddenly exploded with an astonishing speed. Without any warning, it quickly rotated. With every rotation, the liquid in the cauldron was swallowed by the black lotus at a speed that could be seen with the naked eye. In a few breaths, there was not a single drop of liquid left in the cauldron. Boom! The lid of the cauldron opened, and the third-grade black lotus flew into the air. It left the jade cauldron and directly appeared in the demon abode. The black lotus was still rotating. This time, it was absorbing the power of desire that filled the demon abode, as if it was real. It was constantly swallowed by the black lotus, and it was silent in the lotus. Demon refining cauldron, refine 10,000 kinds of energy, devour the heavens, and devour the earth. A huge roar erupted in his heart. His entire mind was completely focused on the jade cauldron in the center of the demon abode. The reason why the heaven-grade demon abode was called the heaven-grade demon abode and was known as the most important factor in becoming an unparalleled powerhouse. The key lay in it. Possessing it meant that one had astonishing potential. This cauldron suppressed the demon abode and could refine 10,000 kinds of energy for one's own use. At this moment, it finally exploded with its incomparably astonishing power. On the jade cauldron, there was a sudden burst of astonishing light. With a sudden tremor, the jade cauldron's clockwise rotation suddenly reversed, and in a counterclockwise rotation, at a shocking speed of several hundred revolutions per second, it madly rotated. In just a few breaths, the jade cauldron's counterclockwise rotation caused a terrifying hurricane to sweep up in the flat ground of the demon abode. It swept through every corner and spread outside the demon abode, inside the entire body, and even outside the body. All of the energy was sucked into the cauldron, without leaving a single trace behind. A terrifying, devouring power erupted. At this moment, the jade cauldron seemed to have turned into a terrifying black hole that wanted to devour all energy. All of the energy, once it entered, disappeared without a trace, like a bottomless pit. This strange, devouring power filled the entire body. That tyrannical and overbearing energy was also within the body. When it came into contact with this unimaginably frightening, devouring power, although it wanted to resist, with every rotation of the jade cauldron, the devouring power increased exponentially. It was not something that this strange energy that was resisting by instinct could resist. Like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves, it easily swept it up and swallowed it into the demon abode and quickly entered the jade cauldron. No matter how tyrannical you are, when you enter the demon refining cauldron, this king will obediently tame you. He secretly said this in his heart, but he could not help but feel a trace of shock at this energy. This strange energy that appeared after eating that strange egg was actually so large that it was comparable to his current cultivation. It was so large that it was inconceivable. The demon refining cauldron swallowed all of the energy that was wreaking havoc in his body. However, the demon refining cauldron did not slow down because of this. After a pause, the direction of its rotation changed from counterclockwise to clockwise again. It spun round after round, and with every round, a mysterious energy would be emitted from the cauldron, falling into it and refining it. No matter how the strange energy roared in the cauldron, it could not break free. Instead, it was constantly being refined by the jade cauldron, turning into a pool of black water that fell into the cauldron. In the blink of an eye, a pool of black liquid had accumulated in the cauldron, occupying 2/3 of the space. In the sky, there was also a mass of green energy that spiraled like a cloud. Originally, I wanted to find a quiet place to go into seclusion after leaving the heaven-reaching tower and attempt the second realm of desire. I did not expect that a strange egg would force me to have no choice but to break through. With such a large amount of energy, with my current cultivation, I can't suppress it. Di took a deep breath. As the saying went, plans could not keep up with changes. This was indeed a wise saying. Originally, the energy accumulated in his body was enough to break through to the next realm and reach the second transformation of the Yaodan. However, due to various things, he was so busy that he did not have enough time to have such an opportunity. He could only suppress his realm. However, he did not expect that this unforeseen event would completely ruin his previous plan. All of a sudden, the energy stored in the cauldron was swallowed up. In the Black Lotus, there were suddenly bursts of undercurrents. The surging energy was about to break through the shackles in front of it at any time. This situation could no longer be suppressed. Since this was the case, Di did not complain too much in his heart. Instead, he became even more determined. The heaven-reaching tower is extremely strange. Just the gravity alone is so terrifying. If I can take advantage of this opportunity to break through, my strength will definitely increase greatly. At that time, my chances of survival will also be greater. He secretly made up his mind and put the third grade Black Lotus outside back into the cauldron. Once again, it landed on the liquid that was about to fill the jade cauldron. The roots of the Black Lotus directly pierced into the liquid and continuously swallowed it. A thick layer of dark light appeared on the Black Lotus. The runes scattered all over the place were also constantly changing their shapes. Last time, I entered the realm of sorrow. This time, I will enter the realm of desire, which represents taste desire. Di thought carefully. Now, the third grade Black Lotus could swallow 3 kinds of desires, the taste of sorrow and happiness. Each grade represented a kind of desire. Now, the first grade Black Lotus that originally belonged to the power of sorrow had been completely controlled by him. It was no longer filled with the power of desire, but a pure royal true power. Any power of sorrow that entered would be converted into royal true power in the shortest amount of time. If he could once again transcend from the taste realm, then the range of the 2 grades would merge into one, and what it contained would be royal true power. No longer speaking, he secretly operated the Royal Tyrant Heart Sutra in his heart. His whole mind rushed into the realm of taste without reservation. Boom! As soon as he entered, he suddenly saw that the Black Lotus shook violently, causing the entire jade cauldron to tremble violently. The power of heaven and earth in the Linglong Treasure Pagoda was suddenly attracted and rushed toward Di like a tide. There was also a huge power of desire that formed a huge energy vortex, like a funnel, rushing into the body. In the realm of taste, it was not easy to pass through. The desire for good food was innate. No one could escape from it. As soon as Di entered, countless kinds of extremely tempting supreme delicacies appeared in front of his eyes. Dragon liver and phoenix gallbladder, exotic delicacies, endless delicious spiritual essence, immortality peach of heaven, bodhi of earth, ginseng fruit, lingji mushroom meat, and so on. There were all kinds of things as long as you could think of. There was everything in front of you. Every one of them was so tempting that even his saliva was about to flow out. The desire of ordinary people was all kinds of exotic delicacies, precious wine, and all kinds of delicacies. Even the emperor could not avoid this desire for good food. As for those immortals, they ate all kinds of delicious and unique spiritual essence with a unique charm. They also ate spiritual fruits that could help increase their strength. Innate peach of immortality, eating one could immediately become an immortal. Ginseng fruit, with a bite, one could live as long as the heavens. Waves of exotic fragrance rushed into the nose. It kept circling in front of his eyes. Even though Di was prepared, his eyes could not help but stare at those treasures that only existed in legends. His throat moved, and he secretly swallowed his saliva. Looking at the heart of the emperor, condensing the will of the overlord, looking down on the heavens, above all living things, at the peak of all living things, only I am supreme. Standing at the peak of heaven and earth, everything is in my eyes, untainted and untainted. My heart is eternal. Under the heavens, the earth can't bear my heart, the heavens can't hide my eyes. All living things, my heart is supreme. Dominating heart, dominating heart. My heart is immortal. Word by word, he spat out the Imperial Tyrant Heart Sutra. A unique aura of supremacy burst out of his body. In an instant, his whole body was filled with endless majesty. He was like an emperor, standing at the peak of all living things, not confused by all things. There were two tests in the realm of desire. The first was to test whether one's heart was firm or not. If one was lost, one would definitely fall. The second was to enter the realm with one's body and personally transform into different objects to experience their feelings. If one could not transcend, one would also lose one's nature, lose one's primordial spirit, and be consigned to eternal damnation. The first test, with the Imperial Tyrant Heart Sutra, was enough to resist, but the latter test required one's own willpower to resist that kind of boundless temptation. That was the most dangerous moment. If one could not transcend, one could not control this power. If one wanted to obtain any power, one must first be prepared to pay the price. Outside the pagoda, many people had already gathered. Most of them were cultivators, and there were also quite a few demons. They were all quietly waiting for the result of the competition outside. Among them, the most mysterious was still the group of people from the Linglong Pavilion. They brought a magic treasure that could turn into a pavilion when released. Yu Linglong and the others had already entered the pavilion. This pavilion was called the Linglong Pavilion, and there were a lot of treasures in the pavilion. It was open to the public, and there were many cultivators and even demons searching everywhere to see if they could find the items they needed. Chapter 366. In the world of immortal cultivators, there was a saying that described the pavilion of delicacy. As long as you could afford it, you could find any treasure in the pavilion. This was not an exaggeration at all. It was rumored that the pavilion of delicacy had accumulated countless treasures, from the lowest to the most common magic weapons, ordinary pills, medicinal materials, and even some treasures that were hard to find in the secular world, such as divine weapons and martial arts manuals. They were all extremely common and innumerable. Precious treasures such as magic weapons, spiritual treasures, and even natural spiritual treasures had been kept in the pavilion of delicacy. No one knew how many treasures the pavilion of delicacy had. Its wealth was immeasurable. There were once people who wanted to take advantage of it, but as long as they had any malicious intent, they would immediately disappear from the world without a trace once they took action. Even immortal realm strong men could enter, but not leave. From this, it could be seen that Linglong Pavilion's ability was not as simple as it appeared to be on the surface as it was a merchant. There was an enormous power hidden in it. It was precisely because of this powerful deterrence that the Pavilion of Delicacy became an extremely different taboo in the Zijin continent. It was a very unique existence that was independent from many other forces and did not participate in any fights between other forces. It only appeared in front of the world with the face of a merchant. It was the largest place where one could trade freely without worrying about any threats. Killing and robbing outside, items of unknown origin, and treasures that were inconvenient to use could be traded freely in the Pavilion of Delicacy without any investigation. Everyone's identity would be kept secret. This made the Pavilion of Delicacy the most popular trading place in the world. But the Pavilion of Delicacy was still very mysterious, because it did not have any pavilions. There was only one place to see them, and that was the Island of Delicacy. Moreover, the Pavilion of Delicacy would not stay in any place forever. The Island of Delicacy they were on was not an island in the ordinary sea, but a very mysterious floating island. The island was very big. It was said that it was tens of thousands of miles wide, like a small continent. The whole island was floating in the air, floating freely. It was very mysterious. But the most unbelievable thing was that it was said that the whole Island of Delicacy had been refined into a treasure. There were countless formations on it. Even if one directly attacked with a treasure, it would be difficult to damage the island. When necessary, it could be used as a powerful treasure to fight against the enemy. A large number of living beings lived on the island. The entire island was where Ling Long Pavilion was located. The island of delicacy normally floated around freely. Any cultivator or demon could come to the island, and no fighting was allowed on the island. All kinds of transactions could be conducted inside. They could also set up their own stalls to sell things. It was very prosperous. However, every year, Ling Long Pavilion would hold a large-scale auction on the island. At that time, Ling Long Island would be anchored somewhere for 3 months. Once the message was sent out, any living being could enter. That was an extremely important day in the world of cultivators. Every time, the Ling Long Pavilion earned a lot of money. To be honest, the Pavilion of Delicacy had existed for far too long. On the entire continent, no one wanted to become enemies with such an unknown force. This made the Pavilion of Delicacy an unusual existence that seemed to transcend. Many things would be witnessed by the Ling Long Pavilion. This time, the Immortals and Demons competition had also invited the current Pavilion Master of the Ling Long Pavilion. Now that he had arrived, he had brought along the Ling Long Pavilion. It turned out that it was also a treasure ground for trading. Pavilion Master, who do you think will win this Immortal Demon competition? The demon race, or the cultivators? At the highest level of the treasure pavilion, Yu Linglong's entire body was still covered by that strange bamboo hat. Her body was covered by a black veil. She held a cup of high-grade spiritual tea that emitted a faint fragrance as she looked outside the pavilion. Beside him was a young woman dressed in green clothes. Her hair was tied into 2 braids, and she could be considered a beautiful woman on the outside. She blinked her large eyes and cast a glance at Heaven-Reaching Tower before she asked curiously, "What's the matter with Heaven-Reaching Tower?" The Tower of Babel has existed since ancient times. No one knows its origin, but it is the #1 divine object on the purple gold continent. No supreme treasure can compare to it. It is very mysterious. Since ancient times, no one knows how many levels there are inside. However, the savage beasts inside are extremely terrifying. Just the first level alone is enough to kill anyone who has not reached the tribulation stage. Yu Linglong's voice was calm and natural, like the sound of nature. It shook one's soul and was extremely unique. It was often unforgettable after hearing it. She gently shook the teacup and continued, "If you want to find the heaven-reaching stone in the tower, you can't win by relying on numbers. On the contrary, the more people enter, the more casualties there will be. It is too early to say who will win and who will lose." As she spoke, her eyes hidden under the black veil were like stars, shining with a strange light. As she spoke, she muttered to herself, "Who is that black-robed demon king? Why does he give me a familiar feeling and make me want to get close to him? Strange." Although the demon race has declined, it was still a race that dominated the ancient times. Now, there's such a young generation that I can't see through. The image of a black-robed demon king with a strange saber on his back appeared in her mind. Just by standing there, he naturally exuded a dignified aura. His whole body was like a fog. After seeing him, she also had a feeling that she could not see through him. However, she instinctively felt that this was not an ordinary demon king. Just the strange saber alone made her feel that it was not an ordinary divine weapon. There was spirituality in the saber. "Pavilion Master, this year's exquisite tournament is coming soon. The head shopkeeper asked me to bring a message to Mississippi. Where will the exquisite island be parked?" The green-robed servant asked again. "Yes." Yu Linglong subconsciously put down the teacup. The tea in the cup had unknowingly turned cold. It was as if she did not want to drink it at all. It was just a subconscious action. After thinking for a while, she looked at the green-robed servant and said, "Since the Immortal Demon competition will be held in the Heaven-Reaching Tower, then the exquisite tournament will be held in the South Pole ice region outside the tower. Tell the head shopkeeper to immediately send the exquisite island to the ice region. Immediately spread the news and announce the location of the world tournament." "Yes, Pavilion Master." After hearing this, The green-robed servant answered respectfully and immediately left. After leaving the treasure pavilion and the heaven-reaching tower, she took out a jade talisman and sent it out. The jade talisman disappeared with a jade light in the blink of an eye. And all kinds of changes would happen in the world because of this jade talisman. Let's not talk about the exquisite pavilion outside. As for Di Shirtian, who was in an awkward situation where he had no choice but to break through, he did not hesitate to forcefully break through and enter the second realm of desire. Once he entered, his entire mind was completely focused on the Black Lotus. But at this moment, the third-grade Black Lotus was crazily spinning at a speed that it had never seen before. The roots below were continuously swallowing the black liquid into the Black Lotus. Then, from within the Black Lotus, a faint golden true power was spat out and rushed out of the demon palace. It followed the demon vein connected to the heart and entered the body. Following the rapid circulation of the demonic veins, at this moment, from the first demonic vein, each and every tiny vein seemed to have a life of its own. Under the stimulation of the Emperor's true force, it extended at an extremely fast speed, and the tentacles took root in every inch of flesh. They were densely packed, like a strange network. Every time a large amount of Emperor's true power flowed through an inch of the demon vein, there would be a pure true power that would directly merge into the demon vein, increasing the toughness of the demon vein and making it even more resilient. The demon vein was nourished and instantly glowed with vitality. The Emperor's true power did not stop and once again rushed into the second demon vein. In a moment, the second demon vein was like a dry sponge, constantly absorbing the nourishment of the true power. Then, at the edge of the demon vein, like the first demon vein, branches appeared. They also spread out in all directions and pierced into the flesh. In the blink of an eye, the true power had already flowed through the two demon veins. But the strange thing was, Di Shirtian had created 13 demon veins in his body. 3 of them had already been opened and could absorb the power of desire. But when the true power flowed through the third demon vein, it did not cause the same changes as the other 2 demon veins. On the demon vein, there were no branches. It only made the demon vein more resilient. Along with it, traces of true power flowed through the demon veins and spread into the flesh and blood of his body. Every inch of his flesh and blood, under the integration of true power, immediately burst forth with astonishing power. It continuously devoured true power, making the demon body even stronger. In the body, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and the power of desire flowed into the pores of the body. A part of it did not enter the demon palace, but directly merged into the flesh, constantly strengthening the body. In the Linglong treasure pagoda, if there was someone beside him at this moment, they would see that Sakura had already reverted back to his original form. An incomparably huge black tiger was standing proudly between heaven and earth. It was as tall as 100 feet, and waves of black demon chi gushed out from the pores of its body. It was incomparably dense. The demon body in the demon chi seemed to have received some kind of inconceivable stimulation. His entire body was like a balloon fiercely expanding. Boom, boom, boom. In the blink of an eye, almost every moment, there would be some kind of drastic change. In a few breaths, he had expanded to a height of 150 feet. However, after expanding to this extent, the originally rapidly expanding demonic body suddenly began to mysteriously shrink. 1 zhang, 2 zhang, 3 zhang. Every moment, the demon body began to shrink at a speed of 1 foot by 1 foot. At this moment, if there was anyone who could see through the demon mist and see Di Shirtian's body, they would discover that every time the demon body shrank by 1 foot, a trace of a strange black liquid with a fishy stench was expelled from the pores of his body. It was expelled by the demon chi and fell to the ground. The stench was incomparable. It was as if some kind of impurity was expelled from the body. With every layer expelled, the chi on the black tiger's body grew stronger. The king's chi that belonged to the king of beasts along with the aura of supremacy, covered his entire body. As time passed, it grew stronger and stronger. Just like this, when his body shrunk to about 500 feet, his body began to expand again. Sometimes it expanded, sometimes it shrank. Every time he went through this cycle, a large amount of filth would be expelled from his body. However, the further he went through this cycle, the less filth there would be. By the 9th cycle, there was no more filth being expelled, and his body remained at a size of 1,000 feet. The purple king mark on his forehead flashed brightly, and a vast aura burst forth. With a sudden tremor, the space around him trembled and rumbled. Roar! A pair of tiger eyes opened in an instant, emitting 2 sharp rays of light. Without the slightest expression, he opened his mouth and let out an earth-shattering tiger roar. Waves of sound waves roared out like a tsunami, with him as the center. Wherever it passed, the ground was like the surface of water, creating waves after waves. Tumbling and tumbling, there were bursts of rumbling. In an instant, it was as if the entire world had submitted to him. The tyrannical aura instantly swept through the entire world. After a long while, the black tiger shook his body, and the demon Chi quickly entered his body through the pores of his body. His entire body turned back into a human in a black light. His entire demon body was suffused with a layer of sparkling light, and the demon body carried a powerful aura. His entire body was covered in a black robe, and his black hair fluttered wildly behind his head. In those deep eyes, there was an unperturbed look. What a powerful realm of desire. What a powerful inner demon. I didn't expect that what came this time was not a lightning tribulation, but a heart tribulation. The 2-9 demon tribulation is indeed not easy to pass. If it wasn't for the fact that I had listened to the heart-refining song in the Guqin Valley and had looked directly at my heart and refined my state of mind, I'm afraid that I would have completely sunk into the realm of desire and the inner demon simultaneous attack. Tion exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. This breakthrough was indeed a little too thrilling. He almost fell into a state of eternal damnation. The demon clan was envied by the heavens, and every breakthrough was accompanied by a terrifying demon tribulation. From the 1-9 demon tribulation to the 9-9 demon tribulation, each one was scarier than the last. This breakthrough was naturally no exception. But the strange thing was that this time was a little unexpected. Originally, he thought that it would be a lightning tribulation, and with the protection of the Linglong treasure pagoda, nothing would happen. But he never thought that it would not be a lightning tribulation, but a heart tribulation. It had triggered his inner demon. When crossing the realm of desire, an inner demon had appeared. How terrifying was that scene? Facing the inner demon and the realm of desire at the same time, he had almost completely sunk into it in an instant. It was completely a fluke that he was able to transcend. Even now, he still had some lingering fear. Phew! Next time, no matter what, I have to be fully prepared before breaking through. If this situation happens again, even if I have 9 lives, it won't be enough. His eyes flickered, and he muttered to himself, "Fortunately, I finally broke through smoothly." The second transformation of the demon core is completed. Clang! His right hand instantly landed on the tiger's soul, and with a light sound, the tiger's soul was unsheathed. The royal true force poured into the saber like a tide. In an instant, the saber burst out with a strong golden light, and the fishbone-like patterns on the saber became even clearer. The saber slashed forward, and the saber light burst out. It was hundreds of feet long, and it landed on the ground. Kacha! The tiger's soul slashed on the ground. In the surroundings of the saber light, countless green grass were instantly crushed. In an instant, the ground in front of him was split open, and an incomparably huge crack appeared on the ground. The sharp saber aura pierced through heaven and earth. With one slash, the ground split open. When I was in the first transformation, I would have needed at least 70 to 80% of my true force to do this. Now, a casual slash can achieve such power. His physical body and true power had undergone a complete metamorphosis. My battle strength has increased by more than 10 times in an instant. Holding the tiger's soul, he looked at the crack in front of him and thought to himself. Every time he broke through, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. One step was the end of the world. This time, when he broke through to the second transformation of the Yaodan, the power of desire that he had accumulated in the Black Lotus was all refined into the purest royal true force. This power was so huge that it was not inferior to his true force in the slightest. When all of it was converted, it instantly multiplied the royal true force. With the energy that he had devoured from the strange egg, the royal true force became even more powerful. It allowed his cultivation to receive huge benefits in an instant, becoming even more profound and powerful. And during the breakthrough, his Yaodan body was repeatedly tempered, and some of the impurities in his body were also tempered out. After merging with a huge amount of energy, his physical body was more than 10 times stronger than before. After thinking for a while, Tian stretched out his left hand. His right hand took out a magic artifact, grade metal attribute, flying sword from the storage bag, and slashed at his wrist with force. Clang! When the sword hit his hand, it actually produced a metallic sound. A sparkling and translucent light flashed on his arm. Among the flying swords, the extremely sharp metal attribute flying sword could not even cut his skin. Now, magic artifact grade flying swords are already unable to break my Yaodan body. As expected, the gap between each realm is like a natural chasm. However, there is a fundamental difference between the Yaodan realm and the Yaodan realm of the Yaodan realm. Right now, I'm only at the second transformation of the Yaodan realm. If I break through to the fourth transformation of the Yaodan realm, I wonder what kind of world it will be. He raised his head to look at the void, his gaze abnormally deep. He stood there quietly for a long time. This time, he had spent a full 3 years in the pagoda to break through in seclusion. Almost a month had passed outside. This further highlighted the preciousness of the Linglong Treasure Pagoda. If he was outside, where would he find so much time to break through? After a moment of silence, he did not immediately go out. Instead, he sat down again and silently circulated his cultivation technique, circulating the royal true force, familiarizing himself with the changes in his body after the breakthrough, and familiarizing himself with the sudden increase in power. The sudden increase in power was not something that could be grasped from the start. He had to constantly familiarize himself with it, and then grasp it. Only by grasping it like waving his arm could he truly display his full strength. Otherwise, he would only be able to display less than 70% of his strength. This was like a double-edged sword. If he grasped it well, he could kill. If he did not, it would be suicide. Unknowingly, another year had passed in the pagoda. In this year, if Tian was not cultivating in seclusion, he would get up and practice his saber techniques one after another. Ordinary basic saber techniques, the demon god sorrow that he had created himself, and everything he knew, he would casually display it. Through each practice, he familiarized himself with the power in his body. A year later, he sheathed the tiger soul and left the Linglong Treasure Pagoda without hesitation. His body appeared in the tree hole that he had previously dug out. If you have a ticket, please help me. Any ticket is fine. Please. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 367. After a year of familiarizing himself with it, he was able to perfectly control the explosive power in his body. He was able to conceal the aura around his body perfectly without revealing anything. He picked up the pagoda and put it away. The last time I stole those 2 strange eggs, I even ate one of them. Just the egg alone contained such an incredible amount of energy. It was almost comparable to the energy I had before I broke through. Their parents are definitely not ordinary savage beasts. I've been in the pagoda for more than 4 years, so it should have been about a month outside. I wonder if their parents have left. A strange light flashed in Shirtian's eyes. At that time, because he had rashly swallowed the strange eggs, the energy in his body had increased explosively. He had no choice but to immediately go into seclusion. He could only dig a hole in the ancient tree where the nest was to hide. However, he had entered in too much of a hurry and did not know anything about what had happened outside. He could only secretly guess if the parents of the strange eggs had left. Taking a deep breath, his right hand had already landed on the slender hilt of Tiger Soul on his back. As long as there was any movement, Tiger Soul would be unsheathed in an instant and slash from any angle with the sharpest blade. Gia! He gently pushed open the small door of the treehouse. The sound of the door opening was so loud that if Tion did not listen carefully, he would not have noticed it. It was unusually soft. He carefully pushed open the door and took a step forward. A pair of sharp eyes quickly scanned the surroundings. Silence. The surroundings were unusually quiet. It was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard clearly. Usually, this kind of silence was nothing. However, in this place, it was so quiet that it was a little scary. There was not even the sound of birds or insects. It was very strange. Something's not right. Ian's heart skipped a beat. A thought flashed through his mind. He reacted extremely quickly and turned his head to look at the position of the nest. When he saw it, cold sweat broke out on his back. On the thick treetop above his head, two pairs of cold eyes filled with intense hatred were staring at his head that had just poked out of the tree hole. Two strange birds that were more than 10 feet tall, even without spreading their wings, stood quietly at the original position of the nest. It's the parents of those two strange eggs. A thought appeared in Tian's mind. Immediately after, his entire body shot out like an arrow from a bow. He flew into the distance like a floating light without hesitation. In the next second, his figure had already appeared 100 feet away. He was fleeing into the distance at the fastest speed in his life. He quickly shuttled between the towering ancient trees. Roar! Two mournful and earth-shattering cries erupted from the mouths of the two strange birds. Staring at Sakura's fleeing back, the hatred in his eyes seemed to want to burn his entire body. Among them, the larger bird, the male bird, flapping its wings. A terrifying gust of wind blew through the forest. With a flap of its wings, the strange bird's speed was as fast as lightning. It immediately appeared above Tian's head. Two strange claws that were as black as diamond and suffused with a metallic luster spread open. With this ferocious pounce, the claws whistled through the air and grabbed at him. In the air, under the strange bird's ferocious aura, streams of seemingly solid wind blades appeared crazily under its two fleshy wings. The air under the strange bird's strange claws emitted a chi-chi, tearing sound. Before the claws arrived, the fierce wind from the claws had already rushed toward him, as if it was going to tear a crack in the air. Clang! Even though Tian was fleeing, he still maintained his sharp spiritual senses. When he felt the terrifying wind from the claws, the fine hairs on his back stood up like steel needles. It was so stimulating that a layer of goosebumps instantly appeared on his back. His expression turned serious. His body, which was originally rushing forward quickly, stopped as he moved. He took a step forward with his left foot. His body followed the momentum of this step and turned around. The tiger soul in his hand was unsheathed. The crisp sound of the blade was accompanied by a domineering, low tiger roar. The fishbone-like patterns on the golden blade of the tiger soul suddenly seemed to come alive. They squirmed as if they were alive, and the blade slashed at the strange claws above his head. Clang! Fast! No matter if it was the strange bird or Tian. In terms of attack, they were both at the peak. The moment the blade was swung, the strange claws clashed with the tiger's soul. A strange sound of metal clashing rang out. Tian's entire body suddenly trembled as if he was struck by lightning. There was a sweet taste in his throat, and he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. But when he spat it out, Tian immediately channeled a portion of the royal true power into his blood. When he spat it out, it turned into droplets of blood and shot towards a strange bird's head like sharp arrows. The blood droplets flew through the air and one could only see streaks of sharp bloodlight. It could be seen that the true power contained within the blood droplets was extremely large. If it really hit the body, it would immediately pierce a large hole in the body. Kill. Tion didn't care about the blood he spat out. The muscles on his arms squirmed violently like dragons, and his veins popped out. Within the demon palace, the third-grade Black Lotus suddenly spun in reverse. An enormous amount of royal true power rushed out of the demon palace, and along the demon vein, it poured into the tiger's soul. The tiger soul's golden blade light circulated, and on the blade's body, there seemed to be a divine tiger filled with the aura of a supreme king roaring towards the sky. The blade slashed out with lightning speed. When the blade slashed out, heaven and earth wept for it, and the sun and moon dimmed. Endless death intent burst out from the blade, and the golden blade light connected the sky and the earth. It emitted a dazzling radiance that cut through the void. Within the blade, one could see endless sorrow. It was caused by the fallen gods and devils of ancient times. The gods and devils were originally experts that stood above the masses, but they all fell in a single day. Within the blade, the grief of the gods and devils when they fell was completely displayed. At this moment, the tiger soul seemed to have a life of its own. Countless gods and devils flew out from the blade, and each of them had incomplete bodies, broken legs, broken arms, and even more than half of their bodies. The moment they appeared, the death intent within the blade became even stronger. Every god and devil had a battle blade in their hands, and it covered an area of 100 feet. Within this area, everything was covered by the battle blades. These gods and devils were all illusory, and they waved their battle blades. The blade moves were the simplest, and they were all basic blade moves. It was simple and direct, but it was the most direct manifestation of killing. Within the blade, there was the trajectory of heaven and earth. Every blade bloomed with a brilliant light. The blade techniques in the hands of each god and devil were different, but each blade was fatal. This wasn't an ordinary blade technique, but a battle technique. It was the dance of the gods and devils, and it was Tion's self-created peerless battle technique, the death of the gods and devils. When the blade was unleashed, it wasn't just the death of the gods and devils, but also heaven and earth. Thousands of gods and devils. Every single one of them wielded a blade that contained power that was not inferior to Sakura's own. And at this moment, there were thousands of gods and devils that appeared, which meant that his battle prowess had been stimulated by thousands of times. At the same time, they slashed towards the strange bird from all directions. Roar! Looking at the gods and devils flying in the sky, the strange bird's eyes burned with anger. Its huge wings flapped fiercely, and under the wings, 2 hurricanes were immediately swept up. The hurricanes carried countless sharp wind blades. Wherever they passed, all the towering ancient trees in the surroundings were instantly turned to dust by the hurricanes, and 3 layers of the ground were scraped off. The death of the gods and devils collided with the terrifying hurricanes. It was as if 2 comets had collided, and a terrifying rumble erupted. A wave of air filled with destructive power instantly swept out in all directions, turning everything in its path into fine powder. Whoosh! A streak of black light shot out from the wave of air and shot forward like a bolt of lightning. In a few breaths, it had traveled hundreds of feet. It was unbelievably fast. It was as if the ground had shrunk to an inch. F***CK. This time I've really provoked someone I shouldn't have. What is the origin of this strange bird? Terrifying, too terrifying. Tion carried the tiger's soul and didn't even turn his head. He used the force of the hurricane created by the strange bird to send himself out and turned to leave. His figure was like a flickering shadow. As he fled, he couldn't help but feel a trace of bitterness in his heart. This time, he had completely kicked an iron plate. Although he had already guessed from the enormous energy contained in the strange eggs that their parents were definitely extremely powerful existences, he never thought that they would be so powerful to such a terrifying extent. Since the beginning, when he clashed with the strange bird's strange claws, the power that burst out from the strange claws instantly rushed into his body. If it wasn't for the fact that his body was much stronger than that of a normal human, he would have been smashed into meat paste on the spot. Even a royal true force couldn't completely resist it. Even so, his internal organs were still shaken to the point where he spat out a mouthful of blood. Even when Tion used his most powerful battle skill, the demonic god Sorrow, it was easily blocked by the two hurricanes created by the strange bird. The wind blades within the hurricanes attacked the demonic gods. Although it was enough to contend against the hurricanes, in the end, it would at most be a draw. This was only the two hurricanes created by the strange bird's wings. If it were to come, what kind of terrifying attack would descend? When that time came, how would he deal with it? In almost a millionth of a second, Tion chose to escape without hesitation. In the face of a strong enemy, daring to fight and daring to kill. This was courage. When one couldn't defeat the enemy, one had to know how to be flexible. He only had one life, so he had to retreat when necessary. If the strange bird was 1 or 2 times stronger than him, Tion wouldn't hesitate to fight to the death with it. That way, at least, he would have a chance to win. But the strange bird in front of him was more than just 1 time stronger than him. If he hadn't broken through before, facing the strange bird, he would have been directly blown to pieces. Terrifying, too terrifying, so terrifying that it was far for what he could compete with now. Sooner or later, there will be a day when I return today's humiliation. Tion suddenly heard a shrill sound behind him. His face changed, and he sheathed the tiger's soul. A light flashed in his hand, and the 7 sins demonic zither was held in his hand. The earthy yellow earth spirit pearl, embedded in the 7 sins demonic zither, emitted a thick layer of divine light, instantly enveloping every inch of his body. Bang! A vigorous strange claw landed on Sakra's body, but it was blocked by the divine radiance outside his body. However, that earthen yellow divine radiance was also violently trembling. The terrifying brute force sent him flying 100 feet away on the spot, heavily smashing onto the ground. He let out a muffled groan, but his body seemed to have come into contact with a drop of water in the ocean. His whole body turned into a ray of divine light and sank into the ground. How? The strange bird's 2 sharp claws fell on the ground, and 2 cracks appeared where Tion had just fallen. It tore open the ground. Waves of red magma spewed out from the ground, burning the sky. But Tion's figure had mysteriously disappeared. The strange bird's 2 eyes were full of hatred as it looked into the distance. It flapped its wings and flew to the north. At this moment, the other female bird also followed. The 2 of them chased after it, and a tyrannical aura swept out crazily from their bodies. Everywhere they went, all the savage beasts bowed their heads, not daring to make sound. What are these savage beasts? Even I can't get rid of them by hiding underground. How to know my whereabouts? Underground, Tion borrowed the power of the earth spirit orb of 7 sins. It could be said that he was like a fish in water, without the slightest obstruction. When he moved, his speed was incomparable, not inferior to when he used the earth escape method outside. However, Sakra's complexion didn't improve in the slightest. There was a trace of doubt in his paleness. Although he was traversing through the soil, he could still clearly feel that there were 2 unusually tyrannical auras following closely behind him. No matter what he did, if he went left, they would also go left. No matter how he changed his direction, he couldn't avoid the strange bird's pursuit all the time. He was secretly wondering how these 2 strange birds had locked on to his position. Lunatic D, you really are a lunatic. I was just taking a nap, and you actually provoked the Emperor Phoenix bird of the 1st floor. Heavens, just what kind of heaven-enraging thing did you do to provoke these 2 terrifying beasts to chase after you like this? Suddenly, Ming's frantic roar sounded in his mind. In the strange void in the purple eye, Ming's huge dragon body was constantly moving wantonly. The dragon claws under his body were crazily waving in the void as he roared loudly. Ming, you're finally willing to speak. Quickly think of a way to get rid of these two strange birds. When Di Shirtian heard Ming's voice, he was overjoyed. Only Ming had the experience of entering the Tong Tian Tower. He definitely had a better understanding of the Tong Tian Tower than Di Shirtian. At this moment, Di Shirtian could not help but feel like a drowning person grasping at a life-saving straw. What have you done to provoke the Emperor Phoenix Bird to chase you so closely? Ming continued to question. Nothing much. I just ate one of the two eggs that the two birds put in their nest and stole the other. Di Shirtian pretended to be relaxed, but there was a trace of bitterness in his heart. If he knew that this would be the result, he would not have dared to do such a thing. But at that time, even the eggs had been smashed. In fact, the result was not much different whether he did it or not. Lunatic D, you're really a F***king lunatic. You even dared to eat the Emperor Phoenix Bird's eggs. My God, you're too bold. Ming was so shocked by Di Shirtian's words that his eyes rolled back, and he almost fainted. What kind of savage beast is the Emperor Phoenix Bird? Quickly think of a way to get rid of these two strange birds. Otherwise, sooner or later, I'll die under their claws. Di Shirtian asked Ming as he moved forward with the help of the Earth's spiritual bead. He was also curious about the origin of the two strange birds. From the short fight, he had thoroughly understood how terrifying they were. He had long known that they were no ordinary savage beasts. TSK, the Imperial Phoenix is not an ordinary beast. It's the king of the first level. As long as you haven't reached the ancient Demon King realm, you won't be able to fight against them. Ordinary ancient demon kings aren't their opponents either. Unless you're an expert among the ancient demon kings, anyone who encounters them will die. A pair of fleshy wings stirred up a gust of wind. This gust of wind was extremely tyrannical. If one were to be swept into it, even the hardest iron and stone would be sliced into pieces by the wind blades. There were two sharp claws on the wings that could tear apart the strongest savage beasts. The two claws below its body were incomparably hard and powerful, and were impervious to swords and spears. But that's not the most frightening part. My master, the Emperor of the Underworld, once said that the most frightening part of the Imperial Phoenix Bird is the three divine feathers on their tails. He had unimaginable abilities. As for what it is, Master didn't mention it back then. He only said that in the first layer, there are no savage beasts that can match up to the Emperor Phoenix Bird. Dark told him everything he knew as if he was pouring beans out of his mouth. Now I understand why the Phoenix Emperor is chasing you so closely. What is it? TSK. Have you forgotten that you ate an egg of the Emperor Phoenix Bird? That egg contained the essence of the Emperor Phoenix Bird's entire life. Since you ate it, you must have a trace of the Emperor Phoenix Bird's aura on you. With this aura on you, how could you escape from their pursuit? Even if you were 1,000 miles away, they would still be able to smell you. Ming thought for a moment and chuckled strangely. I see. What kind of person was Sakura? He immediately understood and came back to his senses. He now understood why the Emperor Phoenix Bird treated him as if he was an enemy that killed its son. With a flash of light in his hand, the exquisite pagoda was taken out. Then it shrunk to the size of a speck of dust. With a flash of his body, he entered the pagoda. With a thought, he controlled the pagoda and flew into the distance. The exquisite pagoda was the most precious treasure that the heavenly demons carried around with her. It was very magical. Once he entered it, his aura was naturally concealed. Then, he quickly left the place. The Emperor Phoenix Bird was indeed bewitched. It flapped its wings and created a hurricane, which tore a crack in the ground. However, there was nothing underground. Di Shirtian had already escaped. Roar. Mournful cries continued to ring out. The two strange birds continued to circle in the sky above the mountain forest. Hurricanes swept out in all directions, intending to bombard everything in the vicinity. Everything was blown to smithereens. For a long time, they refused to leave. Then, they summoned a large number of savage beasts to search the area again. At this moment, no one noticed that near where Di Shirtian disappeared, there was a figure that no one else could see standing silently. There was a hint of shock in his eyes. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. I support the author. I support the original reading. Chapter 368. It really is Shirtion. I guessed right. Although a figure was standing in the same spot, no one could see her from the outside. Not even a trace of her aura leaked out. Her body seemed to have entered another space unbelievably. Although she was standing in the same spot, there was a unique power of space wrapped around her body. It was as if she was standing in a different dimension and looking at things outside. Unless someone could break the power of space wrapped around her, it would be difficult for anyone to detect her information. Once there was danger, she could escape into a different dimension and use the power of space to escape. With a thought, she could appear in an extremely distant place. This kind of remarkable ability was the best way to save one's life. It was Baihu. Baihu hid at the side and watched Shirtion being chased by the two Emperor Phoenix birds until he had nowhere to run. She had followed him all the way here, intending to find a way to help him escape from the Emperor Phoenix bird's pursuit at the last moment. However, she did not expect that Shirtion would have such an incredible method to mysteriously disappear and escape the Emperor Phoenix bird's pursuit. What did Shirtion do to make these two strange birds act as if they had seen their father's murderer and have an irreconcilable enmity with him? They are so persistent. How did he provoke such terrifying savage beasts? Baihu lowered her eyes and muttered to herself. She was not as knowledgeable as Ming. Although she was shocked by the strength of the Emperor Phoenix birds and knew that she would not be a match for them, even if her injuries were completely healed, she still did not know their identity. In her heart, she guessed that these strange birds must be the most powerful savage beasts in the tower. A month ago, she heard the commotion here and had a premonition that Shirtion might be here. Hence, she used a remarkable ability to conceal herself and came here. As she approached carefully, she witnessed the power of the two Emperor Phoenix birds with her own eyes. Countless savage beasts within thousands of miles were under their command. They were true kings. Just now, she also saw the hatred in the eyes of the two strange birds when they saw Shirtion. It was a fury that could not be washed away even with all the water in the world. It was a fury that could not wait to grind his bones and scatter his ashes. She couldn't help but secretly wonder how Indra had angered them. If she knew that it was because she had eaten their eggs, she would probably be like Dark, either going crazy or fainting. How did Shirtion leave? Even I can't sense his aura. After pondering for a while, he glanced around and closed his eyes to explore in a strange way. There was doubt in his eyes, as he didn't feel the slightest bit of aura coming from Sakura's body. It was as if he had completely disappeared from this world. She could not help but be secretly surprised. Her eyes flickered. After a while, she said to herself, forget it. With Shirtion's endless trump cards, it seems that he can at least keep his life here. I should take this opportunity to look around and find the whereabouts of the demon transformation pool. Su Tianxiang thought of the fierce battle between Shirtion and the Emperor Phoenix birds. She could not see it before the battle. But after the battle, she saw that Shirtion's cultivation had increased by more than 10 times in a short month. His cultivation had entered the second transformation of the Yaodan realm. While this surprised her, she also had doubts that she could not get rid of. But then again, if one did not know what the exquisite creation pagoda was, such a cultivation speed would indeed leave one speechless. At this moment, the Linglong treasure pagoda was constantly shuttling through the ground. Inside the pagoda, Sakura was standing in the courtyard of the first layer. He let out a heavy sigh and said, "What a terrifying Emperor Phoenix bird. Even the ancient Demon King found it difficult to win against it. No wonder, even after I had just broken through to the second transformation of Demon Core, my strength had skyrocketed. My strength was no different from the third transformation of Demon Core of an ordinary demon race, but it was still easily blocked by it. After a few exchanges, it made me spit out blood, and even my internal organs were dislocated. This time, it had been a close call. He had almost been on the brink of death. He had practiced the book of the Emperor's shocking world. The quality of his true power was far superior to that of ordinary demons. He had an undeniable advantage in terms of refining his demon body and absorbing the power of the sky and the earth. He had all sorts of trump cards that gave him the ability to challenge people of a higher level at any time. If it had been an ordinary Second Revolution Yao Dan who had faced the Emperor Phoenix, there wouldn't even be a corpse left behind. Fortunately, I have the Linglong Treasure Pagoda to conceal my aura. Otherwise, I would have been forced to use my most powerful trump card. While muttering to himself, he unconsciously reached out his hand to touch the strange purple mark on his forehead. Ming, hurry up and think of a way for me to escape from the Emperor Phoenix Bird's senses. The exquisite creation pagoda can hide my aura, but I can't stay in the pagoda forever. I need to think of a perfect plan. I don't want to meet the Emperor Phoenix for the time being. Sakura asked Underworld in his mind. He was completely out of ideas. While he was being chased, he had tried all kinds of methods, but he couldn't hide the aura of the Emperor Phoenix from them. He could only ask Underworld, who was experienced and knowledgeable, to see if there was a good idea. Lunatic D, don't even think about getting rid of the aura of the Imperial Phoenix Bird. When you ate the egg and refined all the energy inside, it had already fused with your royal true force and every inch of your flesh and blood. There's no way to get rid of it. Unless you can make another breakthrough in a short period of time and refine your demonic body once more, there's no other way to do so. Ming said without the slightest hesitation. Then, I really can't get rid of the Emperor Phoenix? Di Shirtian frowned slightly. His eyes flashed with a strange light. There was a trace of ruthlessness in his eyes. If that's the case, I will fight this Emperor Phoenix, even if it means both of us getting hurt. The purple mark between his eyebrows suddenly shot out a sharp purple light. The purple light seemed to contain an endless amount of pressure. If there was really no other way, he would fight the Emperor Phoenix no matter what. Although the Emperor Phoenix was strong, he had his own trump cards. The Seven Sins Divine Melody and the purple eye on his forehead. As long as he used it, he was confident that he could fight the Emperor Phoenix. Crazy Emperor, why are you in such a hurry? I haven't finished speaking yet. It's very difficult to get rid of the aura that is fused into your flesh and blood. However, I didn't say that there's no way to conceal it. Towards the end of his words, there was a trace of complacency in his tone. What way? Di Shirtian's eyes lit up. He immediately asked. Back in the day, I, Dark, followed my master to roam the world. In ancient times, there were countless divine arts for me to read. I was trapped in the 18 layers of the Book of Hell. At that time, there were countless experts, but Dark, was so skillful that they all told me everything about their ancestors. Not to mention the divine arts. I know a lot of divine arts, and I also know a lot of divine arts that can hide one's aura. Dark was very proud of his past deeds. The black tortoise breathing technique, the spirit snake breath holding technique, the ice heart technique, the phaseless technique, and the flawless heavenly close technique. These are all top divine arts that can hide one's aura. As long as you successfully cultivate them and hide your aura, it is just a small matter. A series of divine abilities and cultivation methods were poured out as if they were the treasures of his family. One by one, he listed more than 20 kinds of divine abilities and cultivation methods. Listening to each one could feel that there was something unusual about it. They were definitely not ordinary divine arts and divine arts. Thinking about it, what kind of divine arts and divine arts that could be remembered by an old guy like Dark would be ordinary? When Di Shirtian heard this, he couldn't help but admire Dark in his heart. This Dark was really worthy of being a fierce spirit in ancient times. He was really talented. Chun-Shi pondered deeply for a moment before he said, Ming, all of these techniques you spoke of seem to be extraordinary. However, the most pressing matter right now is time. If we require too much time to cultivate, then we'll miss the competition. However, the flawless heavenly close technique sounds interesting. In the pagoda, the most important thing was not to win the competition. Finding the demon transformation pool was the most important thing. If you were trapped in the pagoda, you couldn't do anything. Most divine arts required a long time to cultivate. Even with the exquisite pagoda, it was difficult to achieve anything in a short time. Lunatic D, you have good taste. The flawless heavenly clothes technique was very famous even in ancient times. Back then, the Wooey fairy escaped from my master's hands 3 times in a row with this technique. Once you use it, all your aura will be hidden in your body. Not a trace of it will leak out. If you master it, even if you stand in front of others, they can see you, but they can't sense you with their divine sense. Others will feel like they don't know you. It is very powerful. Dark's words were full of praise for this divine art. It was said that the heavenly clothes were clothes woven by celestials. There would not be pinholes on the heavenly clothes like ordinary clothes. These gaps would let in the wind. No matter how dense the weave was, it was impossible to not have any gaps. However, the heavenly clothes were different. When worn, you couldn't find any gaps on the heavenly clothes. They were completely natural. Even the wind could be caught and caught. The bodies of all living creatures had pores. Although these pores were small, they were undeniably emitting their own aura at all times. The ordinary aura concealment technique was to close the pores and not let out any aura. However, the flawless heavenly clothes was even more magical. Once it was mastered, it would not be the pores on the body that would be closed, but the aura of the body would not be emitted at all. Instead, the aura would be condensed into a ball and not let out all. Even when walking or sitting, the pores would open naturally, but not the slightest bit of aura would leak out. Even the aura would be restrained, as if it did not exist. It was as if there was no life. The flawless heavenly clothes has 3 stages. When the first stage is mastered, the pores on the body can be closed at any time and hide the aura around the body. However, a certain amount of energy is needed to maintain it. The second stage is to condense the aura in the body into one and not let it out through the pores. The third stage is to restrain even life force and all auras. At that time, if you think you're a dead person, you're a dead person. Ming began to introduce them enthusiastically. Di Shirtian pondered for a moment and suddenly raised his head. A trace of determination flashed across his face as he asked in a deep voice, "How long does it take to master the first stage?" It depends on the aptitude of each person. Those with good aptitude can master the first stage in 2 to 3 years. Those with poor aptitude may not even reach the threshold in 10 to 100 years. It varies from person to person. However, it should be the most suitable for you. Your Huangji Shocking World book is a peerless book that is hard to find since ancient times. The purity and quality of the Huangji true force that you cultivate is something that even my master didn't have when he was at your level. You don't lack aptitude either. If you say that someone who created the Huangji Shocking World book is stupid, then I'm afraid that everyone in the world is a fool. There was a rare trace of admiration in Dark's voice. Okay, I'll practice. Di Shirtian made up his mind without the slightest hesitation. However, this flawless heavenly clothes training method was also extremely abnormal. The first step was to bury oneself in the ground and not allow one to use one's own cultivation method. One would be like an ordinary person. Just like that, he used a flawless method to experience the feeling of hibernation by faking his death in the soil. The next step was to cultivate in the clouds. One would use the clouds to wrap one's body and seal the air. Then, one would enter the fake death state again while suffocating. Again and again, one would use all kinds of inconceivable and abnormal methods to cultivate. It made one's hair stand on end. Halfway through the cultivation, one could not stop. Otherwise, all the previous efforts would be wasted. However, Di Shirtian did not back down because of this. Time passed little by little. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed in the Heaven Connecting Tower. Zhong Yunfei, I don't know if you noticed, but when we were outside the tower, one of the monster clan members we saw before we came in seemed very familiar. In an open space north of the Heaven Connecting Tower, more than a dozen cultivators gathered together. There were tents set up around them. These tents were emitting bursts of treasure light and were not ordinary items. There was a fire in the middle. The arrival of night made the mountain forest look extremely strange, causing fear to rise in people's hearts. There was no moonlight here, no starlight, and the day and night were abnormally pure. In front of the fire, a peerless young woman with unparalleled beauty and a noble and oppressive temperament, causing others to not even dare to look at her, casually moved the firewood and lightly frowned as she spoke softly. Next to her was a handsome young man who could make all the women in the world feel ashamed. The girl was Chu Yun's princess, Chu Yun, and the young man was Zhong Yunfei of the High Heaven sect. Under the matchmaking of their elders, their relationship seemed to be much closer than others. As for whether there were any sparks between them, it was not clear. Zhong Yunfei turned his head to look at Chu Yun's noble and beautiful face. The corners of his mouth curled up as he said, "Even though more than 10 years have passed, I have never forgotten him for a moment. I remember his appearance and aura very clearly. I will never forget his temperament. He is the black tiger you have always wanted to catch. His name is Di Shirtion. I don't know how he cultivated his strength, but in just 10 years, he managed to cultivate his monster core. No matter how talented a prodigy is, it is impossible for him to cross one realm after another in such a short period of time with his own strength. In my opinion, he must have some supreme treasure on him that can help with his cultivation. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so exaggerated." Chu Yun's princess bit her lip as a strange light flashed in her eyes. She was a persistent person after all. Her background was extremely extraordinary. She was born in the imperial family. From the moment she was born, she could have whatever she wanted. Even if she did not have it, as long as she said so, someone would naturally help her deliver what she wanted as quickly as possible. It could be said that she could get whatever she wanted. Everything turned according to her wishes. Only Di Shirtion. She had failed again and again. What she wanted to do often ended up in the opposite direction. She had always wanted to capture Di Shirtion, but she had almost died under the tiger's claws time and time again. Girls like them had a strong, rebellious mentality. If they could get something easily, they would disdain it. However, if they could not get it, they would want even more. Chu Yun was like this. The more she could not get Di Shirtion, the more she wanted him. This feeling was almost to a state of paranoia. And when she unexpectedly saw Sakura outside the pagoda, an unusual feeling of excitement inexplicably arose in her heart. "What are you afraid of? My great-grandfather doted on me the most. Even my name was personally given by him. Back then, when he heard that I was being bullied, he immediately broke out of seclusion and helped me plant a demon fetus in my body with the only remaining 10,000-year-old blood ginseng in the clan. He taught me one of the supreme techniques of my clan, the Great Tao Heart Demonic Seed Technique. Now that I have entered the door, my cultivation has increased greatly. I don't believe that no matter how fast Di Shirtion cultivates, he can be faster than me. At most, he has just condensed his inner core. I want to capture him, put him on the beast-taming collar, and make him my mount from now on." The corner of Chu Yun's mouth pulled into a strange arc, and a strange bloody light suddenly flashed in her eyes. At this moment, her strength had increased greatly, and her confidence had increased greatly. The Chu family had a strange technique that was both good and evil. It was the Great Tao Heart Demonic Seed Technique. It cultivated a demonic technique, but it required one's mental state to be the Tao Heart. It was extremely strange. First of all, it was incomparably difficult to plant a demon fetus. It required a kind of heaven and earth spirit that was full of evil and demonic nature, and it had to be more than 10,000-year-old. The chance of success was less than 10%. It was very harsh, but its power was also quite incredible. In the past generations, only 3 people in the Chu family had succeeded, and Chu Yun was the third. The first one was to plant a demon fetus. Her cultivation directly crossed several levels. Relying on the essence of the 10,000-year-old blood ginseng, she condensed a demon fetus in one fell swoop. It could be seen that the demonic technique was really terrifying. Zhong Yunfei saw Chu Yun's excited expression when she heard Di Shirtion. He was slightly strange. He suddenly shook his head and said, Tong Tian Tower is too vast. Martial Uncle Tian Shuzi said that the world here is like a complete world. It is vast and boundless. It is not easy to find him here. Moreover, there are savage beasts everywhere here. If you are not careful, you will encounter danger and even die. Hee. Chu Yun smiled and took out the compass. There were mysterious talismans on the compass, and there were 3 needles in the central heaven lake. They were of different lengths. She moved them a few times and said proudly, You don't have to worry about that. Great-grandfather even gave me the psychic compass this time. Before I came in, I used the chi-absorbing bottle to shake a D. Shurtion and collected a wisp of his aura. With his aura as a guide, we can easily find him. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 369. The psychic compass was a rare treasure to begin with. It had a great effect, and its magical effects were simply too wonderful to be described. It was a treasure that everyone in the cultivation world yearned for, but could not obtain. Which cultivator did not wish to have such a compass in his hand that he could carry with him and freely search for hidden spiritual items and treasures in the world? In addition to treasure hunting, it also had another unique ability. That was to search for and track targets. No matter what kind of powerhouse it was, as long as one could obtain a wisp of his aura and send it into the compass with a mysterious secret technique, the compass would display an unparalleled ability and point out the direction of the other party for its owner. Following the compass's guidance, one could naturally track all the way. It was very effective. However, to use this ability, one would need to consume extremely precious top-grade spirit stones. Secondly, one would need to be at least at the nascent soul stage. Otherwise, one would not be able to use it. In addition, there were not many psychic compasses in the world. They were extremely rare and were rare treasures. There would not be many people in the world who could use such a method. Unexpectedly, Chu Yun was one of them. The Chu family actually had a psychic compass. Moreover, their schemes were not simple. When they were outside the tower, they had already begun to set their sights on Di Shurtion and secretly use the air-absorbing bottle to absorb his aura. It was likely that they had already secretly made a decision in their hearts at the first sight. However, my martial uncle and senior Chu went to explore the cave of the savage beast manticore that they encountered during the day. They made us wait here. I'm afraid it's not good to leave rashly like this. There was a trace of hesitation between Zhong Yunfei's brows. Looking at Chu Yun's expectant expression, he was somewhat worried that he would be punished if he left rashly. However, in his heart, looking at that begging expression, he could not bear to stop it. He thought to himself, back then, when I met Di Shurtion in the Nameless Valley, his cultivation was inferior to mine, but he was able to erupt with such a powerful combat strength. Now, in just a short 10 years, he has reached such a realm. If I wait a few more years and maintain such a terrifying speed, then I will definitely be left far behind by him. I will no longer be able to catch up with him. Perhaps this is an opportunity. All demons should be killed. His childhood experience had already planted the seeds of paranoia in his heart. It doesn't matter. At most, we can leave a message here and let your uncle master or my granny come over. Nothing will happen. Chu Yun saw that Zhong Yunfei was a little shaken. She quickly smiled at him and said slyly, It's not easy for us to come out. We originally wanted to train ourselves outside. If we keep following behind the elders, how can we train ourselves? Good. We'll set off now. Zhong Yunfei's eyes flickered as he nodded and finally agreed. Chu Yun was overjoyed. She stood up and left a message here so that Tian Shuzi and the others could find them when they returned. Then, she extinguished the fire and left into the distance. She disappeared into the darkness in the blink of an eye, and the surroundings were covered by darkness. The more darkness one was in, the more dangers one would face. In a mountain forest that was relatively sparse, the ancient trees that towered into the sky with luxuriant leaves were so silent that there wasn't the slightest bit of noise. It was like a deathly stillness, and it seemed extremely strange. Puff! A slight sound of breaking through the ground was heard. In the silence, it was particularly obvious. A small pagoda that was glowing with a purple-gold light quickly drilled out of the ground. In an instant, a black shadow rushed out of the pagoda. This black shadow was also strange. If one didn't see it with their own eyes, they wouldn't be able to imagine that it was a living creature. There wasn't even a trace of sound or aura, including its body temperature. It was as if a stone had been thrown out. The black shadow stood on the ground and reached out to put away the purple-gold pagoda. Although the surroundings were very dark, in D. Shirtian's eyes, there wasn't much difference between night and day. He saw the darkness as if it was daytime. Every scene and every object was incomparably clear. There was nothing in the surroundings. There were no savage beasts or anything else. There were only ancient trees that stood tall. Under the trees, there were some thick but inconspicuous withered branches and withered leaves. Ming, this time, my seamless divine art has reached the small success stage. The trace of the Emperor Phoenix's aura has been retracted into my body. I can finally walk in the Tong Tian Tower without worrying about the Emperor Phoenix suddenly appearing. However, I don't understand the situation in the tower. In order to prevent something like the Emperor Phoenix from happening again, why don't you tell me what I need to pay attention to in the tower? Try to avoid some trouble. D. Shirtian looked around and retracted his aura. His seamless divine art had reached the small success stage. He could close all the pores on his body and retract his aura at any time. However, he couldn't do it naturally. He also needed to retract the trace of the Emperor Phoenix's aura in his body. While he was retracting this trace of aura, he couldn't continue to conceal himself. The aura that belonged to him would still be released. However, what he wanted was to conceal the Emperor Phoenix's aura. Everything else didn't matter. However, after that incident, he had become very wary of the Tong Tian Tower. The first level of the Tong Tian Tower is the weakest level. A king of savage beasts like the Emperor Phoenix is already at the peak of this level. With your cultivation, as long as you don't provoke them, you won't be in too much danger. However, there were savage beasts roaming around the area. Some of them came in groups, while some of them roamed alone. The dangers hidden in every corner are extremely frightening. No matter which one it is, you can't underestimate them. If you encounter a savage beast, you should kill it. Their entire body is full of treasures. Ming said without hesitation. Yes, there are large amounts of heaven and earth spiritual essence in the inner world of the Tong Tian Tower. The blood of savage beasts is even better. We can't go back empty-handed after coming here. D. Shirtian agreed. However, this was under the premise that he could defeat the savage beasts. Killing savage beasts was good for tempering his battle skills. Also, he could get all kinds of benefits. Why not? However, when he was communicating with Ming, he did not notice that the withered branches and withered leaves that had fallen on the tree nearby were moving in a strange manner. As they moved, there was no aura or sound at all. It was as though they were invisible. Inch by inch, they slowly approached D. Shirtian. It didn't seem to be moving very fast, but in a few breaths, they appeared 10 meters away from him. Swoosh! Amidst a formless sound, the seemingly slow-moving branches suddenly stood up from the ground. At the top of the branches, an ugly face that looked like a malicious spirit bloomed. It was in the shape of a flower, but its mouth was filled with fangs, making it look like an evil spirit shrouded in darkness. It opened its big mouth, revealing its sharp fangs. Drops of black liquid dripped down from the corner of its mouth and landed on the ground. The ground made a strange, sizzling sound, and holes appeared one after another, emitting strange smoke. Their movements were extremely fast. They were as quiet as a virgin and as cunning as a rabbit. They appeared in front of D. Shirtian without even seeing their movements. There were many of them, and all of a sudden, they stood up and occupied an area of 1,000 feet. At this moment, Tirtian felt as if he had fallen into the sea of strange flowers. He was faced with many ferocious and terrifying faces. The scene was extremely terrifying. F***CK. Even though Tirtian had always thought that he had a good temperament, he couldn't help but curse when he saw the strange enemies that suddenly appeared from the ground. His body shook, and countless amounts of demonic chi gushed out from the pores all over his body. The moment it gushed out, it quickly condensed and turned into hundreds of pitch-black crescent-shaped blades. In an instant, they covered every corner of his body. They flew around wantonly, drawing mysterious trajectories. They slashed at the strange flowers that were pouncing on him with lightning speed. Demonic Mist Blade. This was the first attack that Tirtian created. It could condense demonic chi into extremely sharp blades at an incredible speed. It launched the sharpest and fiercest attack on the enemy. However, since he had the Seven Sins demonic zither, the sound blade could do the same thing, and it could be even more powerful. Unknowingly, this technique had been temporarily sealed and never used again. But at this moment, the strange flowers came too suddenly. They were so sudden that they could hide from his spirit's sense, and he didn't have any warning signs. The change was too sudden. It was so sudden that he didn't even have the chance to draw out Tiger Soul. In this crisis, he naturally used this sealed technique to protect his body. Clang, clang, clang. Blade after blade danced in the air, tearing through the void like lightning, and bombarding the dozen or so strange flowers that were about to swallow Tirtian in one gulp. What was strange was that when these demonic mist blades, which were strong enough to cut apart magic tools and collide head-on with magic treasures, landed on the strange flowers, the huge force caused all of the strange flowers to retreat. However, the sharp blades did not cut these strange flowers in half. Shocking sounds like blades colliding with swords rang out, and when the blades slashed the strange flowers, sparks burst out. Emperor Lunatic, be careful. These are corpse-devouring flowers. They look like demonic faces and have fangs that could devour metal and stone. They can swallow things 100 times larger than themselves in one gulp. They feed on all kinds of corpses and living creatures. They are adept at concealment and have sharp attacks. They can spit out ghost snakes with strong corrosive properties. However, there was a precious thing in their bodies called the source of life. Kill them quickly. Kill them quickly. It was a treasure that was hard to find in this world. Don't let any of them go. Dart's excited shouts rang out crazily in his mind. Even my demonic mist blades can't break through these corpse-devouring flowers. I didn't expect them to be so tough. When Tirtian heard Dart's shouts, he knew what to do. His right hand had already landed on Tiger Soul's slender hilt. With a clang, Tiger Soul was unsheathed. The moment it was unsheathed, a golden saber light shone in the forest, dispersing the surrounding darkness completely like a sun. Saber chi wantonly swept through the void. Kill! The moment Tiger Soul was unsheathed, the saber cut through the sky like a thunderbolt, leaving a huge afterimage in front of him. It seemed to have crossed the boundary of space, drawing the most mysterious trajectory. With the power of heaven and earth, it hacked at the demonic face of the corpse-devouring flower. The strange flower opened its strange mouth, and its fangs shone with a cold light. It spat out a mouthful of black and stinky liquid. The liquid flew towards Tirtian like raindrops, while the fangs bit at Tiger Soul. It seemed like it wanted to bite Tiger Soul in half. Oomph! A cold glint flashed past Sakra's eyes as an astonishing aura burst forth from his body. The aura of supremacy caused his entire body to rise to an unsurpassable level. The demonic mist blades were fluttering chaotically, yet they didn't miss a single bit of protection as countless blade lights covered his entire body. After blocking the strange black liquid, Tiger Soul landed on the strange flower. Its fangs bit the saber. If it was an ordinary weapon, it might have shattered inch by inch. However, Tiger Soul was a divine weapon. It was made from the body of a tiger that had reached the indestructible body realm. Even time did not wear it down. It was refined into a saber, making it even more powerful. How could the fangs break it? When the fangs bit the saber, the strange fangs broke on the spot. A sharp light shot out from Tiger Soul's blade. The saber swept past like lightning, and from top to bottom, it cut the flower in half. At the same time, he did not relax at all. He turned the saber, moved his feet, and the saber moved along with him. He swept the saber at the strange flower in the surroundings, showing off his sharpness. Crack! The strange flower's tough body was like tofu under Tiger Soul. They were killed on the spot one by one. The strange flower let out a strange cry, and the surroundings suddenly became quiet. Suddenly, the remaining strange flowers sneaked into the ground and disappeared in the blink of an eye. It was as if the scene just now did not exist at all. TSK, corpse-devouring flowers are indeed corpse-devouring flowers. They're still so cowardly. When they see that they can't beat you, they immediately run away and hide. They're the best at sneak attacks. They are unlucky to have met you. If it were someone else, even a Dharma treasure would not be able to hurt their body. Your Tiger Soul is too sharp. Dar clicked his tongue and said, Quick, check the corpse-devouring flowers that just died. See if there are any changes. See if they have formed a source seed of life. He hurriedly urged D. Shirtion. It seemed that he cared a lot about it. What source seed of life? What is that? D. Shirtion glanced at the ground, but in an instant, his pupils could not help but shrink violently. The strange flowers that were killed by him earlier fell to the ground after they died, like withered branches. At this moment, a strange change appeared in front of him. Inconceivably, a black flame emerged from the corpses of those strange flowers, covering the entire corpses in the flames. They burned very quickly. In the blink of an eye, the original corpses were completely burned, leaving only clusters of black flames emitting strange flames. Patter! A soft sound entered his ears. The flames fell to the ground and made a sound as if they were real. The flames also quickly converged in the middle. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared without a trace. Instead, a green seed the size of a fist fell to the ground, and the sound came from it. This seed was sparkling and translucent like an emerald. On the surface, there were traces of green light flashing, but there was no aura inside. It really looked like an ordinary emerald. It looked very strange. He bent down and picked up the green seed. Holding in his hand, he felt that it was very warm, which calmed him down and had the power to calm his heart. He looked around and saw that there were more than 100 of such green seeds. Some were big, some were small. The big ones were as big as a fist, and the small ones were as big as a thumb. Instinctively, he felt that this might be something good. He waved his hand and quickly collected all the green seeds on the ground. Good stuff. This is good stuff. Let me tell you, this source seed of life is a priceless treasure that can't be bought with money. It can only be formed after the corpse-devouring flower dies. They devour other creatures and get a lot of energy, but they don't get much of it. Most of it is scattered in their bodies. Usually, it's nothing, but after they die, all the energy in their bodies will gather. It will turn into a source seed of life. In the ancient times, this was a very precious treasure. Dark shouted excitedly, as if he was very excited to see the source seed of life. He was not stingy, and he wanted to explain to D. Shirtion the various magical features of this source seed of life. Wait! However, at this moment, D. Shirtion raised his eyebrows, and his eyes swept around like lightning. The tip of the tiger's soul dragged on the ground, and the black robe on his body moved without wind. His expression was very dignified, and he had raised all his essence, energy, and spirit to the peak. A tyrannical spirit rushed out of his body and swept inch by inch in all directions. The royal true force was crazily circulating in his body, constantly moving and filling every inch of his body. There's murderous aura. Sakura's expression was ice cold. He wouldn't have sensed wrongly. Just a moment ago, there was suddenly a murderous aura. Although this murderous aura was concealed very well, it only appeared for a moment and was immediately restrained. However, it couldn't hide from his keen spiritual sense. He was sure that the murderous aura was definitely not fake, and it wasn't an illusion. This murderous aura isn't from a savage beast. It's from a cultivator. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and in an instant he had a rough guess. He had experienced the aura of a savage beast before. The murderous aura was very pure, and it didn't have the savage aura of a savage beast. The savage aura was even present in the strange flower. However, the strange thing was that Tion scanned the surroundings with his spirit sense, but he didn't find any cultivator. What a sharp spirit sense. I just released a trace of murderous aura, and he was instantly alert. The knife skill just now was also very sharp, and those strange flowers were easily cut down by the knife. That knife is definitely not an ordinary divine weapon. I'm afraid that a sneak attack won't work. Tion didn't notice that in a dense patch of weeds, there was a big black stone. The big stone emitted a cold aura, and it was no different from an ordinary stone. However, the stone moved mysteriously in an instant. It wasn't a stone, but a human in disguise. The disguise was so brilliant that even Tion couldn't distinguish it when he scanned it with his spirit sense. And under this disguise, there was indeed a human. Although there's no way to sneak attack, I'll create an opportunity. Don't you have that sharp knife? I'll find you a big guy to play with. When you and it are both injured, I'll come out and reap the benefits. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 370. Swoosh! Without a sound, a bronze coffin entered the earth under the large black rock. Like a fish in water, it quickly moved through the earth without making the slightest sound. The countless mysterious talismans on the bronze coffin kept flashing with mysterious halos as it moved quickly to the west. This move was very fast. In the blink of an eye, it had traveled hundreds of miles. Poof! The bronze coffin rushed out of the ground. The place it rushed out of was a deathly, silent valley. There were countless withered branches and withered leaves everywhere, covering almost every inch of the valley. There were so many of them that it was impossible to count. There were millions, tens of millions of them. By the looks of it, this was a gathering point for firewood. However, in the middle of these withered branches, there was a golden withered tree that was so round that even 10 people might not be able to wrap their arms around it. It was shining with golden light, as if it was naked gold. The light it emitted illuminated the surroundings very brightly, as if it was daytime. Bang! When the bronze coffin appeared, it did not care about anything else. It flew into the air and rushed straight into the valley. Crash! When the bronze coffin moved, the originally deathly silent valley suddenly came to life. The thick layer of withered branches that covered the ground stood up from the ground like lightning and turned into strange flowers with ugly faces. There were big and small flowers. The big ones had stems that were about the size of a bucket, and the small ones were as thick as an adult's thigh. Each of them had mouths full of fangs, and they emitted an unusually angry aura. Poof, poof, poof. The strange flowers opened their strange mouths, and each of them wriggled their stems. They opened their mouths and spat at the bronze coffin. In an instant, large amounts of black liquid spurted out from their bodies. In the blink of an eye, it gathered into a long river that covered the sky and rushed toward the bronze coffin. When they saw the bronze coffin, it was as if they saw their natural enemy, a delicacy in the human world, and they were very excited. One by one, they attacked it with all their might, fighting to be the first. They wanted to drown the coffin in the valley. Buzz! However, the bronze coffin did not do anything else. Only the mysterious seal scripts on the coffin burst out a bright light when the liquid was about to fall from the sky. The liquid covered the entire coffin. When it came into contact with the light, it immediately made a strange, sizzling sound. The black liquid was like snowflakes that came into contact with the sun. It quickly melted and turned into black smoke. However, the light from the seal scripts on the bronze coffin also gradually dimmed. It was obvious that it was not completely unaffected. The bronze coffin did not retreat because of the black liquid. It charged forward fiercely, and its target was the huge golden rotten wood in the middle of the valley. It was extremely fast. As long as there were strange flowers in its way, it would not hesitate to collide with them. The flowers would be smashed into pieces. By the coffin, with an indomitable momentum, he crazily smashed a path out of the ground. Around the golden rotten wood, there were 4 huge, strange flowers guarding the 4 directions. Their roots were as thick as buckets, more than 10 feet tall, and emitted a silver glow. The ghost face was even bigger. When it opened its mouth, it could swallow more than 10 people at the same time. Its fangs shone with a metallic luster. They moved up and down, making strange sounds, and were incomparably sharp. When it saw the bronze coffin coming, the soil under the strange silver flower wriggled. Like lightning, 2 huge branches rushed out and coiled around the bronze coffin like snakes. Pata! The 2 long whips appeared too suddenly. They directly stretched out from under the coffin and coiled around the coffin like lightning. In an instant, they stopped the ferocious momentum that was charging forward. At the same time, the strange silver flower immediately opened its mouth and bit at the coffin with its silver fangs. That aura was truly extraordinary. Even the air beneath the fangs emitted a shrill sound as it tore through the air. Kacha! The bloody mouth swallowed half of the coffin, and the fangs gnawed on the coffin. The countless runes on the bronze coffin suddenly exploded with a shocking power. The light was bright, and the bronze divine light shone brightly. The coffin shook, and the fangs were crushed on the spot. It was as if the fangs had bitten on a big rock. A large amount of sparks flew out where the fangs collided with the coffin. At the same time, the coffin lid opened without warning. A silver claw drew a silver claw in the strange flower's mouth. With a kacha, a hole was opened in the strange flower's mouth. The claw retracted like lightning, but the silver claw was emitting wisps of black smoke, showing signs of corrosion. The lid of the coffin quickly closed, and the bronze coffin flew out of the opening with a loud bang, piercing through the mouth of the strange silver flower. Rumble! As soon as the bronze coffin broke through the silver flower's obstruction, the coffin crashed into the huge golden rotten wood with a terrifying force. With a loud bang, the golden rotten wood exploded with a terrifying aura that shook the heavens and the earth. The strange flowers, which had been excitedly attacking the bronze coffin, instantly curled up on the ground and bent their roots towards the golden rotten wood. The bronze coffin immediately rushed out of the valley. However, it still stopped at the entrance of the valley and did not completely escape. Inside the coffin, for the first time, an extremely rich corpse aura burst out. It rolled like a tide and spread out without any concealment. The reason why the corpse-devouring flowers had such a name was because they were born to eat corpses. They were very sensitive to corpse aura. As soon as they smelled such a rich corpse aura, all of them became excited. They made a kacha sound of grinding teeth. Even their saliva flowed out. In the middle, the golden rotten wood that was hit by the bronze coffin was flowing with golden light like water. Suddenly, a roar shook the sky above the valley. An incomparably huge golden corpse devouring flower mysteriously appeared. Its whole body was shining with golden light. Its body was like a tree with thick branches. At the top, a ferocious ghost face the size of a house appeared. This ghost face, even its eyes and nose could be seen clearly. The surface of the face was flowing with golden light, as if it was made of gold. It revealed its fangs, and inadvertently, one would think that this was a mask made of gold. Its whole body exuded the aura of a king. All of the strange flowers curled up under its body. They were incomparably respectful. The 2 golden eyes landed on the bronze coffin. When it sensed the provocative aura coming from the coffin, it immediately flew into a rage. It let out a roar that shook the sky. The branches on its body danced wildly as it roared out orders to the strange flowers around it. In an instant, the atmosphere in the valley changed. Countless corpse-devouring flowers chased after the bronze coffin like a tidal wave. When the bronze coffin saw this, it immediately fled forward. This escape was very particular. It wasn't fast, but it wasn't slow either. It wasn't in a hurry to escape the detection of the corpse-devouring flowers, but also didn't let them get close. It just kept a distance from them and consciously led them forward. The incomparably huge golden flower also roared as it was surrounded by the other flowers. It chased after it all the way, wherever it passed. All of the savage beasts felt its aura and fled. Those that could not escape were all devoured by the sea of flowers. If one observed carefully, they would find that the bronze coffin was actually leading this overwhelming sea of strange flowers to D. Shurtian's location. It's a success. Sakura, Sakura, Sakura. Today, this seat will be here to see how you're going to die. That strange golden flower, even this seat couldn't resist it and had no choice but to retreat. Now I will use a borrowed knife to kill the demon. Let's see if you still don't die. The cultivator, disguised as a stone, secretly thought to himself proudly. He had already felt that the bronze coffin he sent out had successfully attracted the group of strange flowers. Thinking of the upcoming good show, he could not help but feel proud. This disguised cultivator was naturally the five-element sect master, Deng Tianhua. After entering, he could be considered to be one of the unlucky ones. He had directly landed in the valley that the bronze coffin had provoked. At that time, how could he have imagined that the originally quiet valley was actually hiding such a terrifying killing intent? After fighting in the valley, he deeply understood how terrifying those strange flowers were. Not only were there many of them, but the black liquid they spat out covered the sky. They could also move stealthily through the ground. Their attacks were as fast as lightning, and their tough bodies were difficult to pierce. They were extremely difficult to deal with. If one was wrapped up in them, escaping would be extremely difficult. This was especially true for that golden corpse-devouring flower king. He had almost died inside. When he escaped, he was heavily injured. In truth, he had only been nearby because he was recuperating. Today, he had just recovered when he encountered D. Shurtian. When he saw him, he thought of a vicious plan. He wanted to borrow the power of those strange flowers to deal with D. Shurtian and then reap the benefits. At this moment, less than 1,000 miles away, a group of cultivators was carefully moving forward in the forest as night fell. Quick, quick, everyone be careful. Don't alarm those powerful savage beasts. The psychic compass has already reacted. If we follow this direction, we'll arrive about 1,000 miles away. A trace of cunning flashed across Chu Yun's eyes. As she looked at the compass, she secretly gritted her teeth and thought to herself, "Humph, let's see if I'll let you escape from my grasp this time." This time, not only did I learn the great Tao Heart demonic seed technique, but my great-grandfather even gave me that treasure. It will definitely give you an unforgettable surprise. Zhong Yunfei's white clothes fluttered in the wind, and the ancient sword on his back emitted a fragrance. Every move of his carried a kind of perfection. He had an indescribably handsome and extraordinary demeanor. He did not open his mouth to speak. He only looked at Chu Yun from time to time. The group of people quickly traveled through the forest. D. Shurtian sensed that inexplicable killing intent. He scanned the surroundings with his divine sense no less than 10 times. He did not miss a single inch of soil, but he did not find anything. His eyes turned, and his body suddenly relaxed. He muttered to himself, "Strange, could it be that it was just my imagination just now? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was really too nervous." As he spoke, the surface of his body completely showed a relieved look. He looked like he was not too guarded. The door was wide open, and there were many flaws. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 371. You want to tempt me into taking action? You underestimate me. How can you fool me with such a trick? Don't worry, I won't go out. There will be something powerful to deal with you. Deng Tianhua, who was disguised as a rock, sneered in his heart. With his cunning nature, how could he not see through Di Shitian's trick? He just sneered but didn't go out. Instead, he disguised himself even more thoroughly, not revealing his aura at all. Since I'm a rock, I'm a rock. Let's see how you can find me. What a cunning immortal cultivator. Di Shitian stood in place and waited quietly for a moment. He seemed to be relaxed, but in fact, under this relaxed appearance, he was extremely vigilant. Every inch of his body was filled with a vast amount of power. As long as the enemy showed a flaw, he could immediately launch a thunderous attack. However, he didn't think too highly of such a small trick. As long as he wasn't too reckless, he wouldn't take action. He didn't have too much hope. He just secretly asked Ming, "The murderous aura I felt just now can't be wrong. There must be some powerful expert hiding in the dark, spying on my every move. However, his hiding method is too brilliant. He can hide from my divine sense. Do you have a way to find him?" "No," Ming said dejectedly. "I don't know which old monster imprisoned me in this damned place. All these years, my vitality has been greatly damaged. My strength is not even 10% of my peak. Also, I'm imprisoned by this damn purple eye. I can't use any tricks. I can come up with ideas, but don't even think about asking me to help you fight the enemy. However, don't think that I don't know how many trump cards a lunatic like you still has in your hands. In my opinion, if you intend to use this purple eye to find out who is hiding, it may not be impossible for you to see through it." When Di Shitian heard it, he didn't deny it. He said indifferently, "The purple eye is my last trump card. If I use it, I can indeed find the hidden person. However, with my current cultivation, opening the purple, I will consume more than half of the true power in my body. Even I can only use it twice in a row. It is too precious. There are many savage beasts here, and danger lurks everywhere. I will not use this trump card unless I have no other choice. Perhaps it is my only means of survival." He looked around at the silent surroundings and paused for a moment before continuing. "Let's go. Let's leave this place. I feel like there's something wrong with this place. All right, you just mentioned the source seed of life. Why don't you tell me what this source seed of life does? From the sound of it, it is no ordinary treasure." Di Shitian instinctively felt an oppressive aura around him. An inexplicable sense of danger seemed to be sweeping towards him. He didn't want to stay here any longer. His feet moved, and his body moved like a flickering light and passing shadow. He randomly chose a direction and rushed to the east. In the east, he heard a trace of the sound of water. "You want to leave? It's not that easy." Deng Tianhua, who was in disguise, saw Di Shitian leaving. The corner of his mouth revealed a trace of a cold smile. A wave of soul consciousness broke through the air. The bronze coffin, which was close to this place, suddenly trembled and sped up a bit. It brought the sea of corpse-devouring flowers behind it and chased after Di Shitian. Obviously, it wanted to divert the trouble. The strange thing was that the more the strange flowers there were, the more they moved. However, they didn't make too much noise. It seemed that their roots were rooted in the ground, and they could directly move through the earth. Chasing behind, there was only an invisible deterrent force which suppressed the sky and earth. Wherever it passed, all the birds and beasts died. Swoosh! Sakura, who was moving forward quickly, suddenly heard a strange sound. His ears trembled, and he quickly turned around. He stood in a spacious place and swept his gaze behind him. His pupils contracted in an instant. It's this bronze coffin again. The bronze coffin was extremely conspicuous, even in the dark. The seal script on it was still clearly visible, but it was much dimmer. Thoughts quickly spun in his mind. In an instant, he guessed most of what had happened. He finally knew who the murderous aura came from. It's him. 2 cold rays of light shot out from Di Shitian's eyes. The tiger's soul on his back let out a soft cry and quickly unsheathed it. He held it in his hand. "Good. Last time, I let you escape. This time, I won't let you return." As he secretly made up his mind, pure royal, true force madly poured into the tiger's soul. On the blade, the golden divine light became stronger and stronger. However, just as he was about to have a showdown with the silver-armored corpse in a bronze coffin, his expression abruptly changed. He sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at the scene behind the bronze coffin in shock. F***CKU, diverting the calamity and borrowing a knife to kill. Damn, such a vicious method. Tion looked at the corpse devouring flowers that covered the mountains and plains. With a glance, he couldn't see the end of them. He was so shocked that his eyeballs almost fell out. He coldly spat out a curse from between his teeth. The moment he saw the sky full of corpse-devouring flowers, even his scalp couldn't help but feel numb. All the hairs on his body stood up. It was the same corpse-devouring flowers, but the ones he encountered before were only a few hundred. Compared to the huge sea that covered the mountains and plains, it was really a small matter. It wasn't worth mentioning. There were also silver corpse-devouring flowers and golden corpse-devouring flowers that he had never seen before. Especially that golden one. Its body was as huge as a monster. A strong pressure came head-on. The main culprit, the bronze coffin, drilled into the ground and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The corpse-devouring flowers that lost their target obviously saw Tion as an ally and an enemy. Gaga. The golden corpse-devouring flower king screamed a few times. Its roar was filled with anger. Waving its golden branches, it pointed at Tion. In an instant, the huge group of strange flowers, as if they had received some kind of order, rushed towards him like a tide. What was even more terrifying was that a large number of corpse-devouring flowers drilled out from the ground and blocked his escape route. For a moment, his entire body was surrounded by the corpse-devouring flowers. There was still a continuous flow of strange flowers drilled out from the ground. If he went up to the sky, he was afraid that the sky would be filled with liquid like rain. He would become a living hand and be directly beaten down. The scene in front of him was like there was no road to heaven and no door to hell. Deng Tianhua, this debt, this king will definitely settle it with you personally. Sakura coldly spat out a sentence towards the sky. His voice, under the infusion of true power, whizzed out in all directions and spread far and wide. He was certain that Deng Tianhua was definitely hiding nearby to set up such a killing trap to deal with him. If he wasn't there to witness it with his own eyes, wouldn't it be a pity? He wasn't worried that he wouldn't be able to hear this sentence. Kill. Tion took a deep breath. His expression was cold and emotionless. He held the tiger, soul, tightly in his hand and spat out a word. It was like a sudden clap of thunder. In the midst of the roar, the sky resounded with the sound of thunder. It shook the sky and caused a series of sonic booms. Tiger, soul, annihilation. A golden blade, aura, burst out from the blade. It was dozens of feet long, as if it was real. The blade aura was completely restrained in the blade aura. The blade aura was revealed, and it swept out like lightning in front of him. The tiger soul's edge was astonishing. It was incomparably sharp. Wherever it passed, the corpse-devouring flowers in front of him were cut into two. The sharp blade aura entered their bodies and wantonly destroyed their bodies. With one slash, thousands of strange flowers were destroyed on the spot. Pata. Without stopping, he took a step forward. The ground under his feet cracked open and spread out like a spider web. A huge amount of Emperor's true power was poured into his feet. With the power of one step, he destroyed the corpse-devouring flowers that were about to drill out from the ground under his feet with an incomparably violent power. The blade followed him everywhere. Sakura had long cultivated the blade technique that he couldn't be more proficient with. At this moment, blade after blade, he brandished it smoothly like flowing water. Every blade was brandished in the most concise manner. Every blade would definitely slash at a stalk of corpse-devouring flower, severing it. His blade technique wasn't profound. It was just a basic blade technique. However, every blade seemed to have an inconceivable power, drawing a mysterious trajectory in the air. It carried the power of heaven and earth. It drew out a gorgeous blade light. Madman D, stop fighting. There's a golden corpse-devouring flower king among these corpse-devouring flowers. That guy is very scary. If you fall into the encirclement of these guys, your power won't be able to withstand the constant consumption. Moreover, there is someone spying on you from the side. They must want to take advantage of the situation when you and these corpse-devouring flowers are both injured to reap the benefits. Dark opened his mouth and shouted loudly. The scene in front of him was very obvious. Someone was setting a trap. Dark, are those life source seeds important? Are they precious? Tian swung the tiger soul while asking about other things. Why are you still concerned about this now? Precious. Of course they are precious. These life source seeds will be very useful when you cultivate to the ancient Demon King realm. Even the ancient Demon King realm, they are rare treasures. However, no matter how precious the life source seeds are, they are not as important as your life. Before that golden corpse-devouring flower king comes over, hurry up and leave this place. Dark roared in exasperation. The huge dragon body danced anxiously in the confined space. Leave? I haven't thought about that. Since Deng Tianhua dared to set up a trap to kill me, I can't let him live today. Either I die, or he dies. Since the source of life is so precious, I'll take it even if it's difficult to deal with. Dishurian's mind was cold. Everything around him appeared in his mind. The attacks of those strange flowers became incomparably slow in his mind. One by one, flaws appeared in his heart. The tiger soul burst out with a shocking sharpness. Each blade was filled with killing intent. A strong battle intent soared into the sky. Knowing that someone had set a trap to kill him, the killing intent in his heart could not be concealed. Since arriving at the heaven-reaching tower, he was first chased by the Emperor Phoenix, then ambushed by the corpse-devouring flowers. Now, a cultivator wanted to set a trap to kill him. All kinds of things happened one after another. The accumulated anger in his heart was completely ignited at this moment. It's the end of the month. Those who have tickets, please help me. Tian is about to explode. The arrival of tickets will make the flames of passion burn even more fiercely. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chitian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 372. He had never been someone who would be bullied by others. His intelligence was outstanding, and he could tell at a glance who had set up the situation in front of him. In the pagoda, he had encountered one after another, and his heart had long accumulated a nameless fire of retribution. Time after time, this fire of retribution was finally ignited, and it surged crazily in his body. Set up a killing trap to kill me. Let's see who will kill who today. Since you set up a killing trap for me, this king will let you die in this trap. Crazy thoughts flashed through his mind, but his expression and gaze were still extremely calm. So calm that it was a little scary. If someone saw his eyes at this moment, they might be so shocked by the killing intent in his eyes that their body turned cold, their heart stopped beating, and they would suffocate to death. That sharp killing intent was comparable to the gaze of the bronze barbarian bull. It would shatter the opponent's spirit. Madman, you are really a madman. You can withstand the ordinary corpse-devouring flowers, but there are not only ordinary corpse-devouring flowers here, but also silver corpse-devouring flower guards and golden corpse-devouring flower kings. Especially that flower king. To deal with it, you need at least an ancient demon king, the immortal cultivator's tribulation stage cultivation base. If you fight with it now, both of you will be injured and give the enemy a chance to take advantage of you. Ming shouted in exasperation when he saw Tian being so stubborn. There's no need for that. Since Deng Tianhua has set up a trap for me, then wouldn't I be letting down his good intentions if I were to leave just like that? Not to mention that he wants to kill me, and I similarly want to draw out this venomous snake that's hiding in the shadows and annihilate him in one go. Don't worry, even though Ming knows many things about me, there are some things that you're unaware of as well. No matter what, this is a great opportunity to annihilate this venomous snake. Tian held Tiger Soul and swung it again and again. He only moved within a 10-meter radius, but within a 100-meter radius, none of the ordinary corpse-devouring flowers could avoid his attacks. Every strike was fatal. Anger did not cloud his mind. In front of him was a killing trap, but at the same time, it was an opportunity. He saw a chance to kill Deng Tianhua here. If he did not get rid of him, there would always be a poisonous snake following behind him, which would make him feel uneasy. No matter what price he had to pay, he had to get rid of this tail. Humph. A lunatic is a lunatic. I don't care. Don't ask me for help in the end. I want to see what kind of trump card you have. Ming grunted coldly and seemed to be angry. She muttered and didn't continue. She was clearly aware that once Di Shutian made a decision, it was impossible to change it. However, the situation in front of him was clearly unfavorable, and there were enemies spying on him in the dark. No matter what, he should not continue to stay in such a dangerous situation. The number of corpse-devouring flowers was incomparably huge, and they had already occupied the surrounding area. They surrounded Di Shutian in 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. Bang! Under the escort of the 4 corpse-devouring flower guards, the corpse-devouring flower king, which was like a pillar supporting the heavens, quickly rushed towards Di Shutian. On its golden, ghostly face, which seemed to be cast from gold, a pair of golden eyes looked over with fury. The branches on his body lashed out angrily at the towering ancient trees around him. The ancient trees were broken on the spot. He was sent flying through the air. He landed 100 feet away, drawing a series of ditches in the ground and knocking down a large number of ancient trees. The terrifying power brought with it a boundless might, and it pressed down in all directions. Roar! The corpse-devouring flower king roared, and the 4 silver corpse-devouring flower guards immediately rushed towards Di Shutian like lightning. The silver branches on their bodies were as thick as thighs like arms, and they swept over like spirit snakes. They opened their mouths and spat out a mouthful of thick liquid with a strong stench, covering 100 meters around Di Shutian. It was so densely packed that even dodging was useless. Good one. Extreme Monarch Emperor Road, Demon God Morning. Sakura coldly looked at the sea of flowers all around him. No matter how the strange flowers rushed towards him one after another, he himself remained as stable as a mountain like a boulder. When he saw the 4 silver corpse-devouring flower guards, who were obviously stronger than the ordinary ones, rushing over, not only was he not afraid, but he looked as if he was waiting for them to come. A threatening light shot out from his eyes, and he used the only battle skill he knew, Demon God Morning, without hesitation. The unique saber intent surged from the tiger soul and cut through the sky. It pierced through the sky. The death intent that the ancient demon god emitted when he died pierced through the river of time and descended upon the world. Thousands of demon gods flew out from the saber. Every one of them was incomplete, and they held a saber in their hands. In an instant, they covered the sky, covering an area of a few hundred meters, and the corpse-devouring flowers below were all covered in dazzling saber light. The demon gods waved their sabers, wanting to kill. The saber technique was simple, but it was a saber technique used to kill. Countless saber lights poured down like a waterfall, and the air under the saber was cut into bright cracks. They exploded with violent power. The death intent emitted from the demon gods made all living things mourn. They were using their lives to unleash their final saber strike. Boom, boom, boom. Countless saber lights tore through the sky, and as they sliced through countless corpse-devouring flowers, they also left terrifying saber marks on the ground. Hundreds of thousands of corpse-devouring flowers were instantly destroyed by the saber. Among them, the Tiger Soul's saber beam shot out hundreds of feet and slashed towards the 4 corpse-devouring flower guards with a horizontal slash. Bang! The Tiger Soul's sharpness was limitless. Wherever the saber beam passed, the space under the saber would constantly distort, leaving behind a beautiful saber mark. However, these silver corpse-devouring flowers were extremely tough and powerful. They were many times stronger than ordinary strange flowers. When the tiger's soul struck their bodies, it actually emitted a series of violent collision sounds as branches whipped over from their bodies. They blocked in front of the saber. Gaga. The corpse-devouring flower's regenerative abilities were rather terrifying. The severed branches grew back at a speed visible to the naked eye amidst bursts of silver light. It was abnormally strange. The countless branches formed a huge net of vines around them. When one branch was severed, another would immediately grow out. They were densely intertwined together, preventing the tiger's soul from achieving any results. Defend? Can you defend against it? Watch the final transformation of my god and devil child. When Tion saw the woven tough barrier, not only was he not dejected, he became even colder. He took a step forward with his left foot and withdrew the tiger's soul, withdrawing the saber momentum. Then, he took the opportunity to slash forward with the momentum of splitting heaven and earth. At the same time, the thousands of gods and devils in the surroundings suddenly flew back into the tiger's soul, like swallows returning to their nest. Every time a god and devil returned, the aura of the saber would suddenly increase, and the sharpness of the tiger soul saber would become even sharper. The strength of every god and devil was equivalent to Tion himself. Now that they had all turned into power and gathered in the tiger's soul, it was equivalent to thousands of Tion stacked together. Every time one was stacked, the power would increase by a bit. With thousands of Tion's strength gathered together, the power had already reached an inconceivable level. The fishbone-like patterns on the golden blade of the tiger's soul continuously moved as though they were alive. They emitted a divine light that was tens of thousands of feet long. Every strand of divine light contained a sharp blade glow that could directly blind a person's eyes. Being enveloped by this boundless divine light, the tiger's soul was like a small sun, illuminating thousands of miles of mountain forest. The leaves of the ancient trees that were illuminated by the light seemed to be pierced by countless needles, and countless densely packed holes appeared. Being riddled with holes wasn't enough to describe the scene. It illuminated the world as if it was daytime. All the destructive power gathered in the tiger's soul saber body. With the tiger's soul in hand, the aura of supremacy surged from Tion's body, and boundless majesty crazily spread in all directions. At this moment, he had the same feeling as when he accidentally stepped into an unparalleled expert in the witherbone wasteland. Boundless power came from the saber. When this saber was slashed out, even heaven and earth would be split apart. Everything would be annihilated under this saber. Who is it? Who is using such terrifying power? What a terrifying saber intent. Far away by an unknown lake, by who was dressed in palace attire, raised her head and looked into the distance. A trace of shock appeared on her face. Who has such terrifying strength? Is it the tribulation or the immortal transformation? Chu Yun and the others, who were thousands of miles away, felt the destructive aura surging from heaven and earth. They were immediately suppressed by a domineering pressure and could not help but kneel on the ground. They looked at the spot in the middle where countless golden lights had erupted from in fear. Similarly, on the first floor of the heaven-reaching tower, a large number of experts looked in Tion's direction at the same time. Their eyes were filled with disbelief and incomparable fear. There were even some powerful savage beasts who looked in a certain direction thoughtfully. Ow! However, hundreds of thousands of miles away, the two emperor phoenixes, who had been hovering in the sky with grief and indignation, suddenly glanced at each other and let out a shrill cry. They flapped their wings and crazily flew eastward. The three divine feathers on their backs left splendid streaks of divine light in the air. Traces of destructive aura pressed down on the savage beasts below, causing them to curl up on the ground. Rumble. The tiger soul was imbued with boundless power as it slashed down with a loud bang. The vast and mighty power caused the space under the blade to be annihilated inch by inch. When the blade landed on the tough barrier formed by the silver corpse-devouring flowers, it actually couldn't hold on for even a moment. In an instant, it was reduced to nothing and landed on the four strange flowers. Countless sharp blade cheese swept through the void, slicing them into thousands of pieces, completely wiping out their vitality. The shocking saber landed on the ground. An earth-shattering boom erupted. A terrifying saber mark appeared on the ground, splitting the ground open. The saber mark was so deep that the bottom could not be seen. There was also a sharp saber chi that swept through the ground. The power of the saber could cut through the sky. Roar! At this moment, an incomparably huge golden whip smashed down at Tion like an ancient tree. Its speed was even faster than lightning. It crossed the boundary between heaven and earth in an instant and whipped Tion's body. The boundless brute force sent his body flying backward. The golden branch whipped on the ground, causing a terrifying crack to appear on the ground along with a loud cracking noise. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 373. That brute force was so powerful that even Sakura's demon body, which had become much stronger than before, couldn't completely resist it. It rushed into his body and wantonly destroyed it. As his chi and blood rolled, a mouthful of blood surged up his throat. He spat out on the spot and turned into a cloud of blood mist. His body flew to one side in midair. Lunatic D, if you have any tricks up your sleeve, use them now. This corpse-devouring Flower King is not something you can fight against now. That slash of yours was powerful, but you might not be able to use it now. Ming, who was silent for a while, finally spoke. The urgency and worry in his words were obvious. Song of Death, Wolf of Death. Tion did not care about wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. He sheathed Tiger Soul, and with a flash of light in his hand, a 9-string zither with a demonic aura appeared. It was the Seven Sins demonic zither, and it was shining with a demonic jade light. The entire zither floated in the air in front of him. His slender hands gently stroked the strings, and his 10 fingers pressed on the strings. Clang, clang, clang. The imperial true force in his body flowed into his 10 fingers through his demonic veins. He plucked the strings, and 3 notes filled with killing intent suddenly sounded. Circles of sound waves spread out in all directions. Within a 10-meter radius, the space showed a wave-like scene, and the space began to distort under the sound waves. And in the sound waves, there was a trace of blood due to the boundless killing intent. The 3 notes were like the sound of war, drums before 2 armies faced each other. Endless killing intent soared into the sky. The tyrannical killing intent, along with the sound of the zither, pierced through heaven and earth, bringing with it endless killing intent. It had a terrifying power. Every note was like a sharp killing sword. This killing sword was not aimed at the body, but the soul. Hearing the killing sound, the soul was shaken and attacked. Wolf of Death was a fate of Z-Way. It was the 3 killing stars of 7 murders, Army Destroyer and Ravenous Wolf. When the 7 murders, Ravenous Wolf, and Army Destroyer met in the Fate Palace, it was the so-called Kill, Destroy, and Wolf pattern. 7 kills star, Army Destroyer star, Ravenous Wolf star. The 7 kills were thieves who disturbed the world. The Army Destroyer was the general who dominated the world. The Ravenous Wolf was a treacherous and deceitful person. Once these 3 stars converged, the world would change, and there would be no turning back. In ancient times, great generals were born for war. In their lives, they would kill countless people. Corpses would float for thousands of miles under their feet, bones would clatter, and blood would flow like rivers. They were the most terrifying killing stars. Tion had personally experienced such a tragic battlefield in the withered bone wasteland all those years ago, and he'd even personally witnessed such a vast battlefield on the Heartseeker path. When the conditions were right, he naturally composed the song Kill the Wolf. His 10 fingers continuously plucked the zither strings. Amid the zither music, the atmosphere of a battlefield and boundless murderous intent surged. With the sound of the zither, it directly attacked the soul. Anyone who heard the sound of a zither would see a general wrapped in pitch-black armor, holding a blood-dripping saber, standing on a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. He stared at them coldly and swung his saber at them. Afterwards, countless blood-red sound blades shot out in all directions, endlessly slashing towards the strange flowers in the surroundings like bolts of lightning. Those strange flowers were cut into countless pieces by the sound blades, as if they were grass. Among them, most of the sound blades bombarded the giant golden plant at the same time. The corpse-devouring flower king's body shone with a golden light. When the sound blades slashed its body, they could only leave a small cut on its body. However, compared to its huge body, these cuts were like mosquito bites. They couldn't cause much damage to the corpse-devouring flower king. However, the killing intent in the zither music ignored its abnormal defense and rushed into the corpse-devouring flower king's body, attacking its consciousness one after another. The pain from its soul made the corpse-devouring flower king unbearable. It let out a mournful roar, and the branches on its body crazily swung in all directions. Within this range, a large number of strange flowers died tragically at the hands of their king. That strange golden face became extremely ferocious because of the pain. It was faintly distorted. The surrounding strange flowers also fell under the attacks of the zither music and the sound blades. When facing enemies with zither music, the one thing they were least afraid of was group attacks. Indiscriminate attacks were enough to sweep through everything. Outside the body, there were sound blades charging at it at lightning speed. Inside, the soul was directly attacked by the zither music. In particular, the thick killing intent was enough to pierce through the void. It made one's consciousness lose itself and be drowned by the killing intent. What a terrifying monster. Where did this Tion get so many tricks? That slash, just now, was already terrifyingly sharp. If it were me, I would have been cut in half. I didn't expect him to even know the art of sound attacks. This won't do. If this continues, those strange flowers might be killed by him one by one. Then, this plan will be a complete failure. Instead, I let him sense my presence. I have to think of a way to make him and those strange flowers suffer. At the edge of the battlefield, a ripple appeared on a withered tree. It was actually a person in disguise. It was Deng Tianhua. When he saw the battle, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Suddenly, he seemed to have made up his mind. With a thought, the bronze coffin under his feet that had disappeared earlier suddenly moved quickly underground. The direction it was heading towards was Tion's position. It moved stealthily without making a sound. As for Tion, he kept plucking the zither strings, playing the song Kill Breakwolf. The killing intent was so sharp that it could destroy the mind of an ordinary person. However, no one saw that along the way, the earth spirit pearl beside the zither strings flashed, and a divine light silently fell into the ground. The surrounding sound waves also showed a slight change. His face was getting paler and paler. Blood kept flowing out from the corner of his mouth. His body swayed from time to time, as if he was seriously injured and had used up too much of his true power. It was as if he was already at the end of his rope. Kill, break, wolf. Tion looked as if he was preparing for the final killing blow. His face suddenly turned red, and the sound of the zither under his hands became abnormally hurried. He spat out 3 words that were filled with endless killing intent. These 3 words were spat out with a unique rhythm. A mysterious sound wave spread out from his mouth and merged with the sound of the zither. In an instant, the air in front of him fluctuated violently, and countless sound blades converged at the center. In the blink of an eye, they formed an incomparably huge blood-red wolf, and with a roar, they bombarded the strange golden flower. But at the same time, A layer of halo mysteriously flashed on the ground behind him. A strange bronze coffin sprang out from behind him without any warning. It was suffused with a bronze radiance and burst out with a tyrannical aura, crashing towards Sakra's back with a loud bang. In front of him, a long golden whip whipped his body with a chi-chi sound. Bang! After suffering 2 consecutive attacks, Di Shirtian's body suddenly cracked. He spat out a mouthful of blood. There were pieces of flesh in the blood. The blood spurted 3 feet away. His face was as white as a sheet of paper. His body flew into the air and landed heavily on the ground. There were a few more crisp sounds of bones breaking. He didn't know how many bones in his body had broken. The attacks from the front and back were all taken by him. He fell to the ground and fainted on the spot. As for the strange golden flower, its consciousness was constantly attacked by the sound of the zither, causing its mind to be in severe pain. Although Di Shirtian was seriously injured on the spot, the huge blood-red wolf with an extremely dense killing intent roared and crashed into its body. With a loud bang, it passed through its body. A huge hole appeared in its body, and golden liquid flowed out from the hole. The golden light on its surface became extremely dim. Its aura gradually weakened. For a moment, the scene before his eyes was a situation where both sides suffered great losses. TSK. Madman D, I can't believe you thought of this. You actually used serious injuries as the price to lure the hidden enemy to sacrifice himself. You're ruthless. Ruthless to the enemy and not polite to yourself. You have the potential to be an ambitious person. However, be careful that the other party doesn't fall for it. Di Shirtian fell to the ground. He was seriously injured and fainted, looking like he was on the verge of death. Ming screamed in his mind. No, if I'm not wrong, I once killed a young man from the 5 Elements sect in the Heavenly Demon Secret Realm. That person claimed to be the young master of the 5 Elements sect. His father must be the sect master of the 5 Elements sect, Deng Tianhua. I killed his flesh and blood. He must hate me to the core. In his heart, he must want to grind my bones and scatter my ashes with his own hands. Di Shirtian said confidently in his mind. Previously, he set up a killing trap and attracted these corpse-devouring flowers. His intention was to make both of us suffer. Now, it's a situation where both of us suffer. This should be the situation that Deng Tianhua wants to see the most. I've lost the ability to resist. If he can still remain calm and hide in the dark under such circumstances, I have to say that I'm impressed. The killing trap that I've carefully prepared for him can only be abandoned. On the surface, he was unconscious, but his mind was still terrifyingly calm. His mind did not spread out. Instead, it went into the 7 sins demonic zither. The earth spiritual pearl on it flickered with a faint light. An invisible spiritual wave entered the ground from the spiritual pearl. Relying on the magical power of the spiritual pearl, he explored the surroundings. Everything around him appeared clearly in his mind. I didn't expect you to know the art of sound attack. Sound attacks are least afraid of being surrounded. No wonder you have the confidence to set up a trap here. You're really good at beating people at their own game. After all, Ming had not temporarily stayed in his body for long. Before this, he had never used the art of sound attack. Therefore, he did not know about it. This time, he was very surprised when he used it. Now, he was no longer worried. He just watched with interest what was going to happen next. However, Deng Tianhua was still very vigilant. Even when he saw Di Shirtian faint, he did not immediately show himself. With a rumbling sound, the bronze coffin that had just ferociously collided with the Sakra once again flew up into the sky and appeared in the sky above the Sakra. The coffin was suffused with bronze divine light, and with the power of 10,000 caddies, it ferociously smashed down towards him with a loud rumble. To be continued. If you want to know what happened later, please go to www.chijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 374. This pressure from the bronze coffin was even more majestic and domineering than the previous collision from behind. The piercing energy brought about a cold roar in the air. The space under the coffin shook violently, showing distorted scenes from time to time, as if it was going to collapse and be annihilated at any time. Before it pressed down on his body, he could already feel the terrifying pressure from the air. There was no doubt that as long as one was crushed like this, splitting into pieces would be considered light. Most likely, one's body would be crushed to pieces on the spot and crushed into a pile of meat paste. It was extremely miserable. Lunatic D, aren't you afraid that he'll really press down on you in a frenzy? If that happens, you'll be in trouble. Ming saw everything in front of him and couldn't help but mock. That's just a bluff. You're just testing me. How can I be fooled? This little trick is just child's play compared to the big waves I've experienced in the past. With the help of the Earth's spiritual pearl, D. Shurtion clearly reflected everything around him in his mind. Looking at the bronze coffin that was about to crush him into pieces, he didn't even raise his eyelids and said in disdain in his mind. In his previous life, he had seen many storms in the business world and had long cultivated a pair of sharp eyes. Feeling the sharp wind blowing on his face like a knife, D. Shurtion's unconscious body did not react at all, allowing the wind to cut bloody wounds on his body. He just didn't move. It was as if he didn't feel anything and was on the verge of death. His mind was calm. He believed that his eyesight was not wrong. When two people with deep hatred came together, hatred would drive each other to do the most terrifying things. Even eating the other's flesh and drinking the other's blood was the most normal thing. The pleasure of crushing the enemy's bones with one's own hands was the most attractive. D. Shurtion expected that Deng Tianhua would not let go of such an opportunity. Boom! It had to be said that D. Shurtion's eyesight was really sharp. He had seen through people's hearts. The bronze coffin fell with a thunderous momentum. That momentum seemed to have the intention of not stopping until it smashed him into meat paste. However, when the coffin was only 0.01 centimeters away from D. Shurtion, it suddenly stopped. The coffin's momentum came to an abrupt halt. Around the coffin, the air suddenly reversed from extreme motion to extreme stillness, causing a series of muffled sonic booms to ring out in the surrounding air. A tyrannical wave of air blasted out in all directions, causing even the space to distort a little. It was extremely terrifying. If he had moved forward another centimeter, this force would have been completely exerted on D. Shurtion's body. Probing. It really was a test. The bronze coffin floated above his body and quietly hesitated for a moment. It seemed to be hesitating, but also seemed to be confirming something. After a while, it floated to the side and landed on the ground in the blink of an eye. The heavy coffin shook the ground and rumbled. Good fellow, you guessed it right. Dark saw that Indra remained calm and heavy. Even with the coffin on him, he didn't show any signs of resistance. At that moment, if the coffin really pressed down on him, even if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured on the spot and his bones would shatter. Even as an old antique, it secretly admired this courage and insight. Don't worry, he won't believe me so easily. If I'm not wrong, he will definitely test me again. Sakura's state of mind was determined. He was still lying on the ground, showing a completely fainted appearance. For someone like Deng Tianhua who was good at disguising, he would definitely be the type that was extremely cautious. Even if it was a test, it wouldn't be just once. There should be more in the future. If he were to let down his guard now, he might reveal a flaw. Whoosh! At this moment, a golden sword light suddenly appeared in the sky. When it broke through the air, it drew a sharp sword cry. The sword light swept towards him like lightning. Judging from its position, it seemed like it was going to pierce his throat. D. Shurtion opened his eyes and let out a muffled groan. His face was pale. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. He turned his head to look at the sword light. His eyes were filled with horror. He raised his left hand weakly to block the sword light, wanting to grab it. However, he was too heavily injured. He could only raise his hand, but it was unable to grab the sword light. Instead, the golden sword light pierced through his palm with a poof sound. Blood immediately gushed out. How ruthless! He actually used his own body to gain the enemy's trust. Let's see if the enemy won't fall for it. Dark was watching in his mind. He clicked his tongue and exclaimed in amazement. As expected, the sword light was just a test. When it saw that Di Tian had woken up, it found that he had become extremely weak. He couldn't even put up a decent resistance. It was obvious that he was in a weakened state. If Di Tian still fainted and didn't get up, the enemy hiding in the dark would feel that something was wrong. The timing of him waking up was just right. The moment he blocked the sword light, his weak nature was exposed. All these scenes made the spies in the dark feel satisfied. In particular, he believed that under the simultaneous bombardment of the bronze coffin and the golden corpse devouring Flower King, even if he had the ability to reach the heavens, it would be difficult for him to escape the fate of being severely injured. This series of tests was just a form of verification. Whoosh! Without a sound, the sword light reversed and flew to one side. It returned to a rotten tree. Suddenly, a distorted ripple appeared on the surface of the rotten tree. A middle-aged man wearing a gold-trimmed black robe mysteriously appeared between heaven and earth. The sword light flew back to his back and turned into a golden sword that fell back into the scabbard. Ha ha! Heaven has eyes. My son, you must open your eyes and see how your father will avenge your death. Deng Tianhua laughed wildly. His laughing face became abnormally ferocious. He stared fiercely at Di Tian's weak appearance on the ground and shouted sternly, Di Tian, when you killed my son, did you ever think that today would come? That you would fall into my hands? That voice was like the howling of a ghost. It was abnormally sharp. The strong hatred emitted from it could be felt from 1,000 miles away. Deng Tianhua, as the sect leader of the Five Elements sect, you are such a despicable person. Not only did you attract the corpse-devouring flower, you even hurt people behind their backs. You are a despicable person. Di Tian sat on the ground and looked coldly at Deng Tianhua. He said disdainfully, your son wanted to stop me on the heavenly Yin-Yang bridge. Whoever tried to stop me, I would kill. Even if I knew that today's result would come, I still wouldn't show any mercy. Your son deserved to die. Every word was spoken. His eyes met Deng Tianhua's hateful gaze without flinching. That's right. Even if he could do it all over again, as long as he met the young sect leader of the Five Elements sect on the heavenly Yin-Yang bridge, the blade in his hand wouldn't tremble in the slightest. He would kill without hesitation. Good, very good. Deng Tianhua walked step by step towards Di Tian. These few words were squeezed out from between his teeth. There was madness in his coldness. He pointed fiercely at Di Tian and said, I will grind your bones to dust and cut you into 1,000 pieces. I will drink your blood and eat your flesh. I will crush your bones inch by inch and extract your soul. I will place you in the bottomless abyss of the devil abyss. Every day, you will be pierced by the devil wind. You will be burned by the 9 underworld's devil flame and struck by lightning. You will be tortured for tens of thousands of years. Taste the hatred in my heart. All kinds of torture caused a chill to run from the bottom of one's feet to the top of one's head. His liver and gallbladder were torn apart. As he walked and spoke, Deng Tianhua's figure was already within 50 meters of Di Tian. Even ghosts would be afraid of that expression. What a vicious mind. Di Tian's expression was indifferent. He suddenly stood up from the ground. His black robe fluttered without wind. He looked indifferently at Deng Tianhua and said, However, in my opinion, you may not have such an opportunity. Although he stood up, his face was still abnormally pale. You're trying to trick me. Deng Tianhua's expression changed greatly. A bad feeling flashed through his heart. Looking at Di Tian's deathly pale appearance and his extremely exaggerated aura, he immediately calmed down and said, Humph, so what if you're trying to trick me? With your current broken body, do you still want to fight me to the death? From the looks of it, even if you still have some ability, it's only at the end of the line. This day next year will be the anniversary of your death. Even so, he still quickly scanned the surroundings with his divine thoughts. He did not detect any traps at all and was immediately relieved. Originally, even if Tion was at his peak, compared to him, they could only maintain a tie. Now that he was seriously injured, it could be said that he had completely gained the upper hand. Don't you think it's strange? Tion smiled coldly, looked at him, and said meaningfully, "What's strange? I clearly know that you're hiding in the dark, yet I still didn't escape from the siege of those strange flowers and fought with them here. I clearly know that you're far stronger than me right now. So why didn't you escape?" Sakura indifferently spat out a sentence that made Deng Tianhua's mind suddenly turn cold. "Why?" "Because I want to kill you," Tion shouted, and the 7 sins in his hand suddenly made a sharp sound. In the sound of his zither, there seemed to be a terrifying, murderous aura that had accumulated for thousands of years being released in an instant. It broke the sky. A blood-red, murderous aura burst out in all directions. Wherever it passed, the surrounding scene suddenly changed. A blood-red, ancient battlefield covered with countless bones appeared little by little, spreading in all directions like a tide. Everywhere it covered, everything was replaced by this ancient battlefield. Oh no! Deng Tianhua's pupils constricted abruptly as he realized that everything before his eyes was probably a trap set up by Sakura, a trap specially set up to deal with him. Without even thinking, he pointed towards the bronze coffin, and the coffin trembled before charging towards the ground with a bang. However, right when the coffin touched the ground, layers of earthen yellow divine lights suffused out from the ground. It hit the divine light and did not penetrate it. It was like a diamond, blocking his path to escape through the earth. "You want to kill me, so I must kill you. You set up a trap for me. However, if you want to kill me, you're still not strong enough. Now, I'll use your trap to set up a trap for you. How can I let you escape?" Tion showed a trace of sarcasm at the corner of his mouth. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 375. Deng Tianhua's actions had long ignited his fury, causing Sakura to disregard everything and set up a trap to eliminate this old fellow. Previously, the attack that he suffered had indeed caused him to suffer an extremely heavy injury, but it was definitely not as serious as he had imagined. When the bronze coffin hit his body, he had already guided the divine power of the Earth's spiritual pearl into his body, protecting the surface of his body. The Earth Spirit Pearl was the origin of the Earth. In terms of defense, it could be said to be the strongest. When the divine power was poured into his body, it immediately made his entire body as tough as iron. In addition, his body was already unbelievably tough. His defense was unprecedentedly strong. The bronze coffin and the corpse-devouring Flower King's attack had indeed injured him, but the real injury was only his internal organs being shaken. His blood and chi were in a mess, and 2 of his ribs were broken. However, he recovered easily. When he was unconscious, the injuries in his body were almost healed. Even the blood he spat out was forced out by his true power. In order to lure Deng Tianhua, this old fox, into the trap, he had put in a lot of effort. Earlier, when they were fighting against the enemy, he had already used the divine power of Steel Finger Underground. He had been keeping it hidden all this while waiting for this moment to prevent them from escaping through the earth. He had seen how the bronze coffin used the earth to escape back then. In terms of sound attacks, Tion had already reached the realm of condensing objects with his mind. When he played a song, all kinds of strange phenomena would appear. When he played the song Ambush from 10 Sides in the Southern Barbarians, it formed an ancient battlefield in the void, and a real army of millions appeared. Now, the song Kill Break Wolf was the killing song of the killing songs, and its murderous aura pierced through the ancient times. Logically speaking, it was impossible for him to not reach the realm of condensing objects with his mind. However, all this time, only sound waves, sound blades, and even the murderous intent in the zither music had appeared. There was nothing else. It was not that there was nothing, but that he had forcibly suppressed it and did not release it. He had been waiting for this moment. Steel finger technique, blocking his retreat, condensing objects with his mind, drawing them into the battlefield. Once they entered the ancient battlefield, the home ground would no longer be Deng Tianhua, but Di Shi Tian, link after link, link after link, directly setting up a killing trap for Deng Tianhua in the middle of his own killing trap. The most difficult part was how to lure Deng Tianhua out from the shadows. Earthen yellow divine light emerged from the ground. Immediately, blood-colored ripples flashed, instantly enveloping Deng Tianhua and the bronze coffin at an inconceivable speed. Without giving them any chance, when they reappeared, they were already on a huge, ancient battlefield. The ground was paved with countless skeletons. The blood river spiraled. The dense killing intent dyed the entire battlefield red. On the battlefield, there was a god of slaughter in blood-red armor, his cold eyes sweeping across the world. Di Shi Tian was still standing in front of Deng Tianhua. His expression was unusually calm. He just stood there quietly. This is the manifestation of sound. Deng Tianhua was shocked once again. He looked at Di Shi Tian in disbelief. You can actually cultivate sound attacks to such a level. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. His voice was filled with disbelief. He was extremely shocked. However, in the blink of an eye, his expression became abnormally ferocious. A five-colored light flashed in his hand, and a white, jade-like jade bracelet appeared. The jade bracelet was divided into an inner and outer ring. The inner ring did not move, while the outer ring rotated. On the bracelet, there were 5 ancient swords on his back. The ancient swords made a clear sound. A strong aura rose from his body. The lid of the bronze coffin opened with a bang. A burly, silver-armored corpse, full of corpse chi, stared at Di Shi Tian. What's the use of setting up such a big formation? Look at you. You only have half of your life left. If I want to kill you, it will be as easy as turning my hand. Die for me. Deng Tianhua let out a roar. The jade bracelet in his hand shone with 5-colored light, containing a strong power of the 5 elements. It formed a cycle of the 5 elements in the bracelet. As he waved, the power of the 5 elements condensed into one. It was incomparably fierce, and the surrounding space was distorted inch by inch. The vast aura constantly spread out in all directions. The silver-armored corpse also looked ready to attack at any time. You should feel honored that the first target of this divine ability of mine is you. Di Shi Tian did not care about the tyrannical aura that erupted from Deng Tianhua's body. The powerful aura of the combination stage surged over like an avalanche, but he still stood tall like a mountain. He stood there proudly, gently raising his right arm. He reached out and stroked the purple mark on his forehead. Purple eye open, soul snatching. The purple mark between his eyebrows suddenly shot out a stunning purple light. This purple light did not immediately scatter outwards, but instead continued to circulate between his eyebrows. The purple mark slowly opened to both sides. It was as if a god's eye that had been closed for a long time was about to open. Every time it opened, the purple light became stronger. Waves of tyrannical aura burst out from this, like a tide. At the same time, there was a sense of endless majesty in the world. It was as if any living creature was like an ant in front of it. It was as if the heavenly Tao had descended. In an instant, that power ran through the past and the present. It crossed the sun, the moon, and the starry sky. It crossed the 3 realms and 6 paths. Set off by it, Di Shi Tian at this moment, it was as if he was the celestial emperor in charge of the 3 realms and 6 paths. He stood proudly at the top of all living creatures. He was truly majestic. Swish! The 3rd purple eye opened. An array of divine light burst out from the eye like a laser and instantly fell on Deng Tianhua. It was fast, so fast that almost no one could see clearly when this divine light appeared on him. In an instant, he was completely covered in the divine light. In the divine light, Deng Tianhua, who was originally ready to fight Di Shitian, suddenly froze. His eyes suddenly stared blankly. His face suddenly turned pale, and extremely strong fear flashed in his eyes. His entire body was motionless, as if he had been immobilized in an instant. Under the divine light, space and time were all imprisoned. The air was imprisoned, time was still, and space was completely frozen. That scene could only be described as strange. An indescribably terrifying power was suddenly exerted on Deng Tianhua's body. The purple eye on his forehead shot out a merciless and cold gaze. Within the divine light, an illusory figure mysteriously flew out from Deng Tianhua's body. The outline of this illusory figure looked exactly like Deng Tianhua. At this moment, his expression was filled with terror. He wanted to struggle, but he couldn't even move. Following the divine light, it mysteriously flew back to the purple eye. Swish! The virtual divine light suddenly condensed into a ray of light and returned to the purple eye, slowly closing. A purple mark appeared between the eyebrows again. As the purple eye closed, the supreme majesty that had soared into the sky also quickly disappeared. However, in the purple eye, an earth-shattering change was taking place. An incredible change was taking place. My ancestor, this is far too powerful. It's able to directly pull out the soul of a body integration cultivator. It's even sucked into that purple eye. Heavens, what the hell is that purple eye? Where did that old bastard find it? It's so terrifying. I finally understand that the main culprit who pulled me here is this damn purple eye. Dark couldn't help but roar in shock at the terrifying divine ability that the purple eye had suddenly unleashed. Although he knew that the purple eye wasn't simple, he didn't expect it to be so miraculous. Wait, why is the purple eye suddenly changing? Could it be that those old farts want to build that world here? No wonder that old fart wanted to pull me here. F*CKU, despicable and shameless. Suddenly, Dark sensed that the space around him was undergoing a strange change. It seemed that Di Shitian's divine ability had completely activated the purple eye's transformation. The purple eye was undergoing an incredible change, and Dark seemed to have guessed what it was. Di Shitian also sensed that the purple eye between his eyebrows was undergoing a mysterious change. He couldn't use any of its power. However, he vaguely felt that this change would only benefit him. He didn't pay too much attention to it, but he also lost contact with Dark. It was as if the space within the purple eye had been sealed. The purple eye's divine ability is limitless, and its power is boundless. It's a pity that using it consumes too much energy. With my current cultivation, I can only use it a few times. Di Shitian's face turned abnormally pale. This time, it was truly pale. The Emperor True Force in his body had been completely drained in the span of a few breaths. If it weren't for the demon refining cauldron in the demon residence, continuously devouring the surrounding power of heaven and earth and converting it into true force, he would have fallen into a weakened state. However, this divine ability's power was heaven-defying. Once the divine light was released, even time and space could be imprisoned. Deng Tianhua had the powerful cultivation of the fused body, but under the divine light, he couldn't even launch a decent attack before he was imprisoned on the spot, and his spirit was extracted. He couldn't be more dead. Standing in front of him was just an empty shell without any vitality. The silver-armored corpse seemed to be completely under Deng Tianhua's control. Now that Deng Tianhua was dead, without any orders, it only knew to stand there in a daze, as if it was ready to attack. He gently stroked the purple mark between his eyebrows, and a trace of strong confidence appeared in his eyes. This divine eye's first opponent had already displayed such incredible power. It was as if this divine eye contained the power of the innate divine, 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 innate skill. It couldn't directly seize the spirit of a living being. This power was even more terrifying. It was even more powerful than the king mark. He secretly collected his mind, dispersed the ancient battlefield, and took back the 7 sins. He scanned the surroundings, and when he saw the surrounding scene, his eyes suddenly burst out with a strong light, with a trace of excitement. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 376. Source Seed of Life. Source seeds of life that covered the earth. The corpse-devouring flower was a very mystical savage beast. When it was alive, it would devour all kinds of living things, but the life force in these living things could not be digested. Instead, it would be stored in its body and would not be wasted in the slightest, but it could not be used. The enormous life force could not be used when it was alive, but when it died, when its body could no longer restrain it, it would ignite the fire of life and refine all the energy into one. This created a unique treasure like the source seed of life. Furthermore, it was unique and could only be born from the corpse-devouring flower. The corpse-devouring flower was a savage beast and could only be found in Tongtian Tower. It was extremely rare and was usually distributed in various regions. Like this time, there were millions of them gathered in the valley. It was completely a special situation because the golden corpse-devouring flower king was born in the valley, and they clustered around the corpse-devouring flower king, which was why such a huge amount of corpse-devouring flowers were gathered. After Shirtan wantonly slaughtered for a while, adding the 7 sins sound blades that filled the sky and swept through everything, after an intense battle, who knew how many source seeds of life that were flickering with divine light covered the ground. Because of the amount of life force accumulated in the source seeds, most of them were of different sizes, but most of them were dark green in color, sparkling and translucent like precious gems. The most dazzling ones were the 4 fist-sized source seeds that were flickering with a silvery white luster. The aura and luster emitted by these 4 source seeds were different from other source seeds. If ordinary source seeds were treasures that could not be bought with money, then these 4 silvery white source seeds were rare treasures that could not be bought with money. The 2 of them were not on the same level. "I'm rich." Shirtan was ecstatic. He did not need to worry about the injuries in his body. A heaven-ranked spirit demon dwelling was good like that. The demon refining cauldron was wantonly devouring the heaven and earth spirit chi, allowing the true power in his body to recover quickly. He did not need to waste any energy and was recovering quickly. However, everything in front of him was a true treasure. Deng Tianhua is already dead. The 5 ancient swords, the jade bracelet in his hand, the bronze coffin, and the silver armored corpse are all rare treasures. Especially the coffin and the silver armored corpse. If I can use them, they will be a rare help. There are so many source seeds of life, no less than hundreds of thousands of them. The dangers of Skysplit Tower are indeed unimaginable opportunities. Shirtan took a deep breath and took out a storage pouch. He patted it lightly and waved it on the ground. Immediately, a large number of source of life flew up from the ground and into the pouch. Within a few breaths of time, all the source of life on the ground had been sucked into the pouch. Not a single one was left out. Although he still didn't know the true use of the source seeds of life, he had a vague feeling that these source seeds were extremely rare and precious treasures. Otherwise, with Ming's gaze that had seen countless precious treasures, how could she possibly lose her composure and cry out loudly? No matter what, it wouldn't be wrong to keep it. He quickly scanned the surroundings and carefully kept the storage pouch. He also kept the 4 silver source seeds in separate jade boxes and placed them separately. Then he collected all the storage rings and treasures on Deng Tianhua's body. He opened his mouth and directly swallowed the corpse into his stomach. Then he threw it into the demon refining cauldron. With the power of the demon refining cauldron, he quickly refined Dang Tian Hua's flesh and blood into pure energy and poured it into the Black Lotus. Soul extraction, treasures, and even corpses were squeezed out to the last drop of oil. It was shameful to waste. After doing all this, Di Shi Tian didn't even think about it. He randomly found a direction and quickly ran away. When he ran away, he didn't forget to use the heavenly cloak to cover his aura. After traveling for 1,000 miles, he found a valley with a lake in it. He didn't want to cause any unnecessary trouble and directly opened up a large cave in the mountain. After entering the cave, he sealed the entrance, not letting out any aura. From the outside, it was impossible to tell that there was a cave behind. Di Shi Tian sat down with his legs crossed. His mind operated a cultivation method and rushed into the mysterious purple eye between his brows. After he took Dang Tian Hua's spirit and absorbed it, he felt that the purple eye seemed to have been completely activated and touched. It was undergoing an unbelievable transformation. This transformation was the most unbelievable for the purple eye. He had a premonition that this transformation would unveil the mysterious veil of the purple eye to him. He didn't want to miss out on such a miraculous thing no matter what. Ever since the purple eye entered his body and devoured all of his innate abilities, it had already fused perfectly with him. There was no distinction between the two, as if it was born on his forehead. There wasn't any obstruction towards Sakura, and he easily entered the purple eye. However, with this look, even if he had to admit that his temperament was extraordinary, he still wouldn't be able to see it. He couldn't help but be stunned as he looked at the transformation in front of him. In front of him was a chaotic void. In the void, a blood-red dragon was cursing and roaring loudly. It was as if someone owed him millions of dollars. However, as he cursed, his dragon body crazily bombarded the chaotic void. The blood-red dragon claws under his body continuously waved at the void, causing the chaotic void to tremble violently. Its nether. With a single glance, Sakura could tell that the blood dragon was none other than Dark. Damn it, don't let me know who it is. Don't let me escape. Don't look for the nether book. I must take revenge. Otherwise, I'll be the nether prison master for nothing. It was a premeditated plan to trap me here. It turns out that you want me to open the nether prison. F***CKU, I won't let this go. Nether was cursing, but his hands didn't stop. He crazily attacked the void again and again, tearing the entire chaotic void into pieces. The chaotic void shattered. Countless terrifying forces crazily swept in all directions. The boundless chaotic void shattered, forming endless strange black gas. This black gas quickly spread throughout the void. In the blink of an eye, an incredible change occurred. The black gas sank all the way down. At the same time, the black gas at the top rolled violently and suddenly turned into nothingness. In the nothingness, all kinds of strange changes occurred, transforming into an extremely strange world filled with darkness. Even when the wind blew, it carried a terrible roar and a chilly wind. Numerous pitch-black copper pillars were erected, each of them surrounded by iron chains. There were also ferocious iron pincers around, and green nether fire jumped out of the furnaces. All of a sudden, many purple-armored warriors appeared out of nowhere. They patrolled the area and picked up a pair of iron pincers. Suddenly, a kind of coldness appeared on their bodies. This world wasn't very large, but it could hold 10,000 people. It was eerie, terrifying, and filled with bone-chilling coldness. After this layer of heaven and earth was formed, the black gas below also returned to nothingness. At the same time, another layer of heaven and earth was evolving. This layer was extremely similar to the first layer. They were both extremely eerie and terrifying. If a dead person came here, they would be scared out of their wits. If a living person came here, they would also be scared out of their wits. This world was filled with iron pillars, as well as all kinds of scissors of various sizes. It was a very strange sight. At the same time, large groups of war souls in purple armor appeared and picked up the scissors. One level after another, there were a total of 19 levels. Each layer was filled with a bone-chilling coldness. No matter how brave a person was, they would be scared half to death. Each layer seemed to represent a different kind of punishment. Mountains of blades and seas of flames were common. This is the 18th level of hell. Tion looked at the changes in front of him. He was so shocked that his eyes almost fell out. Since his previous life, he had already memorized some of the myths and legends of Huaxia. This was obviously the same as the 18 levels of hell in the legends of the underworld. He could still clearly remember that each of the 18 levels of hell was an extremely cruel punishment. It was an invisible sword that the underworld used to intimidate all living beings and hung above morality. The first level, the hell of tongue ripping all living beings, sowed discord, slandered others, had a glib tongue, argued with others, and lied to others. After death, they would be sent to the hell of tongue ripping. The imps would pry open their mouths, clamp their tongues with iron pincers, and pull them out. They wouldn't pull them out all at once, but would pull them out slowly. It was an extremely cruel torture. The second level, the hell of scissors. Entering this hell, there was a punishment. As the saying goes, the 10 fingers are connected to the heart. If one's fingers were injured, the pain would be even greater than the injury to the heart. After being sent to the hell of scissors, the imps would cut off all 10 of your fingers. After cutting them off, the imps would regenerate again and again, and the cycle would never end, making you suffer endless pain again and again. The third level, the hell of iron trees. It was filled with iron trees. These iron trees weren't ordinary trees. There were sharp blades on the trees. As long as one entered this hell, they would be picked off from the back and hung on the iron trees. Countless sharp blades would stab one's body. They would constantly stir and make one suffer endless pain. No matter how much pain one was in, it would be difficult to die easily inside. The fourth level, the hell of mirrors of retribution. After entering the hell of mirrors of retribution, one's sins would be revealed in the mirror. Then, different terrifying illusions would be cast on one's body, making one reincarnate in endless fear and experience unimaginable scenes again and again. One's mind would sink, and one would be doomed eternally. The fifth level, the hell of steamers. The torture tool in this hell was the steamer. As the name implied, the sinners would be thrown into the steamer and roasted under fire before being thrown into the steamer. Not only that, after being steamed, a cold wind would blow and reconstruct the body. The cycle would repeat endlessly, and one would experience endless fear and pain. The sixth level, the hell of copper pillars. There were countless copper pillars in the hell of copper pillars. The insides of the pillars were hollow. The imps would strip off your clothes and make you hug a copper pillar that was 1 meter in diameter and 2 meters in height naked. There would be charcoal burning in the pillar, and wind would be fanned continuously. Soon, the copper pillar would turn red. This was the punishment of the hot rod, which could roast a person alive. The seventh level, the hell of Knife Mountain. The hell of Knife Mountain was truly an endless mountain of knives. There were countless sharp knives inside, and they were incomparably sharp. After stripping off your clothes, you would have to climb up the mountain naked. Every foot you climbed was enough to cut you into pieces. Cut you into pieces. Above, the pain that came from the body was 10 times or 100 times worse. The eighth level, the hell of Ice Mountain. This hell was made up of incomparably cold ice mountains. There were ice chains on the ice mountains, locking one to the ice mountains and hanging them. Every day, the cold wind of the 9 heavens would blow, and one would suffer endless cold. It was enough to blow away one's soul and freeze it into powder. The ninth level, the hell of Frying Pan. There were only pots of boiling oil inside. You would strip off your clothes and throw them into the frying pan. Pa, 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 pa. That kind of torture was so cruel that it made one's hair stand on end. The 10th level, the hell of Cow Pit. In the hell of Cow Pit, there were only countless wild bulls. After death, they would be thrown into the hell of Cow Pit. After being thrown into the pit, several wild bulls would attack. The bulls would hit them with their horns and trample them with their hooves. Then 5 bulls would be torn apart, and they would die. The 11th level, the hell of rock crushing. The rock-suppressing hell was a square rock pool trough. A huge rock of the same size was hung from a rope. Once a person was placed in the pool, the rope would be cut off with an axe, and the huge rock would fall down, crushing the person on the spot and turning him into powder. The 12th level, the hell of flying swords. Every day, there would be thousands of swords piercing one's heart. They would experience the fear of death again and again. The 13th level, the hell of blood pool. In this hell, there was a blood pool. When one was thrown into the blood pool, countless filth would invade the body, and the body would be devoured by the blood pool. This devouring was not fast, but abnormally slow. It magnified the pain infinitely. The 14th level, the hell of thunder fire. After entering this hell, one would be struck by thunder and fire every day, burning the body. Every day, one would suffer endless pain. Even one's soul would be burned to nothing. Even immortals and gods could not withstand it. The 15th level, the hell of cold wind. In this hell, cold wind blew. This cold wind did not blow the body, but directly surged from the soles of the feet, constantly burning the body, inch by inch annihilating, until one was set on fire. The 16th level, the hell of volcano. The hell of volcano. One would be driven into the volcano and burned alive without dying. One would be invaded by the earth fire and suffer the pain of fire poison. All kinds of flames were inside. The 17th level, the hell of stone grinding. In hell, there were stone grinding stones that ground one into meat paste. After that, the body was reconstructed and then ground again. The cycle repeated, and there was never a day of relief. The 18th level, the hell of sawing. In this hell, there were countless saws. They were tied to 4 wooden stakes in the shape of a. From the crotch to the head, they were sawed to death. This chapter describes the 18 levels of hell. These do not take up the number of words. This chapter is almost 4,000 words, so is only 3,000 words. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 377. The 18 hells of hell had layers upon layers that could allow one to live and die happily, hovering between life and death. Each layer could allow one's soul to recover after being destroyed. It was a torturous process. One could enjoy a luxurious trip to hell again and again. One could enjoy the wonderful torture that one could never enjoy in their life. In addition to the 18 levels of hell, there was also the 19 levels. The last one was the infernal prison. Once one entered it, one would be consigned to eternal damnation and would never see the light of day again. It was the most terrifying first level of purgatory. It was filled with endless darkness. Among them, there was a mysterious purple pool. It was just like the purple pool in the King's Mark. Sakura witnessed the birth of the layers of purgatory with his own eyes. He saw with his own eyes the various torture instruments that were mysteriously born from nothingness. That kind of shock, that kind of horror, was something he had never experienced before in his entire life. Rumble. At some point, the whole world rumbled. All the levels of hell were connected, forming a complete 19 levels of hell. The space in the infernal prison also began to gradually stabilize. A shrill scream came from the nether prison. In the first level of the hell of tongue-ripping, Deng Tianhua's entire body was tied to a thick copper pillar by iron chains. A prison guard in purple armor was holding an iron pincer, constantly pulling his tongue out. Shrill screams kept coming out, and the pain was so great that his face became distorted. Even though he had a body integration cultivation base when he was alive, he was still firmly suppressed here. His fierce resistance had no effect. After his tongue was pulled out, he was thrown into a pot of boiling oil to be squeezed. Every time he went through this, he was thrown into the next infernal prison. He was constantly tortured, and his shrill screams kept echoing in the infernal prison. Crazy D, I've suffered a loss this time. Let me tell you, you must compensate me. Heavens, in order to help you open up the 19 levels of hell, I've used up the last bit of my strength. Let me tell you, you've picked up a big bargain. 19 levels of hell, one more level than my book of hell back then. Heaven-defying divine ability. This is a true heaven-defying divine ability. Dark popped out from the nether prison and looked at Sakura. He looked weak and haggard. It seemed that he had used up a lot of energy this time. He stared at Sakura with a gaze that said, "You brat, you're so lucky." Why is there such a change in my purple eye? What abilities does the 19 levels of Nether Jail have? Tion didn't care about the look in his eyes. He immediately asked about the changes in front of him. He saw that the 19 layers of hell seemed to be completely set up by Dark. The drastic change in front of him made it difficult for him to react. Don't take it for granted, kid. The 19 layers of hell is the pinnacle of my abilities. The boundless divine ability is the origin of that divine eye of yours. Nether shouted complacently. Tion didn't disturb him. He just listened carefully, and his eyes couldn't help but light up. It turned out that the 19 layers of hell were really powerful and marvelous, almost equivalent to the legendary Book of Hell. It was a world of its own, and each layer of hell had infinite power. The stronger the nether prison was, the more powerful the divine I would be. It could also evolve and transform as the nether prison grew stronger. It had infinite possibilities for growth. The growth of the nether prison was even more bizarre. It absorbed countless divine souls and placed them in the nether prison. Under the terrible punishment of the nether prison, the fear they exuded was a powerful force of the nether prison. Then there was the power of the divine soul. After every punishment, the nether prison would naturally absorb a part of the divine soul's power and integrate it into the nether prison, making it more stable and stronger. After thousands of punishments, the divine soul would dissipate, leaving only the last trace of soul imprint. This trace of soul imprint would not contain any memory, and it would become a kind of origin. At that time, a jailer would be born in the purple pool in the last nether prison. He was loyal to Tion and extremely devout. That purple pool was called the Longevity Nether Sun Pool. Once he entered it, he would be reborn. He would truly integrate into the hell. It could be said that once they entered nether prison, they would not give up until they had squeezed every last drop of oil out of you. The power of the divine soul could stabilize and strengthen nether prison. The power of fear could make nether prison more terrifying, and the power of punishment more powerful. Once the hell grew stronger, the power of the purple eye would increase greatly, and it would transform and evolve. As long as it kept absorbing souls into the hell, it could make the power of the purple eye grow stronger. As the hell grew stronger, so did the purple eye. What did this mean? It meant infinite possibilities for growth. This was the truly magical and inconceivable part. How is it? The 19 layers of hell are my masterpiece. When I was the soul of the Netherworld book, I was so powerful that I even dared to suck in a peerless expert. Once you enter the hell, you won't be able to get out without shedding 3 layers of skin. However, the hell here can't be compared with the Netherworld book. At most, it can suppress the soul of a cultivator. If the soul of an immortal realm expert comes in, it will be very difficult to suppress him, and he might be able to break free. If you absorb the divine soul of an ascendant realm expert, TSK, you might be able to transform the nether prison, and your purple eye might evolve as well. Dark looked at the layers of hell and took a deep breath. Smelling the gloomy aura, he actually had a look of enjoyment. After a while, he said, "Crazy D, this purple eye of yours is definitely not an ordinary thing. I'm afraid it's an incredible treasure with an earth-shattering origin. You have to use it carefully. Unless absolutely necessary, don't use it casually. If some experts know about it, they might come straight here and dig out this purple eye of yours." Sakura took a deep breath and exclaimed inwardly. Shortly after, his heart was filled with ecstasy. Nether purgatory, this is really nether purgatory. With this divine eye, he could be considered to have the capital to protect his life. The stronger the divine eye, the stronger he would be. Now, he could directly seize the soul of a body integration cultivator. At this moment, the soul was still being punished in hell. In just a moment, he could clearly feel that the power of fear and all kinds of negative emotions emanating from Deng Tianhua were constantly merging into the nether prison. Every time he was punished, a part of his divine soul's origin power would unknowingly flow out and merge into the 19 layers of nether prison. This made the hell more stable and stronger. Even the divine, I was becoming stronger little by little. This kind of increase in strength could be clearly felt. It was very strange. Don't worry, this will be my last trump card. I won't use it unless I have no other choice. Even if I use it, I will kill everyone I see. I'd rather betray the world than let the world betray me. Di Shirtan raised his eyebrows, and a murderous aura rose as he said proudly, TSK, TSK, to achieve great things, one must not be limited by killing. That peerless expert's path to the peak was not paved with bones and blood. How can a ruthless heart achieve great things? However, you'd better hurry up and bring in a batch of souls. Hee, I haven't personally interrogated a prisoner for many years. Even Di Shirtian couldn't help but feel a chill when he heard it. He said coldly, Crazy D, I'll give you a big gift later. Anyone in hell who still has anything in their stomach must spit it out. Isn't this Deng Tianhua, the sect master of the 5 Elements sect? This time, I'll make him spit out all the cultivation methods and secrets he knows. These are useless to me, but they'll be useful for you to build your force. Not knowing how much time had passed, Sakura left the purgatory in the purple eye. His mind returned, and suddenly, 2 rays of divine light shot out from his eyes. An invisible majesty emerged from his body, and a strong sense of confidence appeared in his eyes. Divine souls, a lot of divine souls. The savage beasts in the pagoda also have souls. Although most of them have low intelligence, their divine souls are very powerful. If I can take them into the nether prison and absorb all of their divine souls, my divine eyes will definitely become powerful. Di Shirtian thought to himself that he should give the purple eye a unique name. Well, the divine eye could absorb divine souls, and there was hell's judgment in it. It would be more powerful in the future. In that case, it would be more appropriate to call it the Eye of Heaven Punishment. With just a thought, the name of the Eye of Heaven Punishment, a heaven-defying divine ability that would deter all the worlds in the future, was so easily set. No one would have thought that in the future, many experts would be shocked when they heard the name of the Eye of Heaven Punishment. He was terrified. Without thinking too much, he closed his eyes again with a happy mood. He operated his cultivation method, inhaling and exhaling the power of heaven and earth, and quickly recovered his true power. However, he didn't know that at this moment, at the place where he had fought with the golden corpse-devouring flower, 2 strange birds as large as rocks were frantically flying towards him. How? A series of earth-shattering cries sounded in the sky above the forest with endless majesty. 2 pairs of sharp eyes quickly scanned the ground and circled back and forth in the air. After circling back and forth over 100 times, the 2 emperor phoenixes were finally enraged when they failed to find the person they were looking for. They flapped their wings, and terrifying gales swept out in all directions. Everything that they passed by was crushed to pieces. Large swathes of the forest were reduced to dust and flattened to the ground. This kind of anger seemed to be endless, and it kept sweeping in all directions. Roaring, he continued to expand his search area. Everywhere he went, nothing was left behind. The savage beasts in the vicinity fled in large numbers, and they didn't dare to resist at all. As if at the behest of gods and gods, the direction in which this Emperor Phoenix couple was searching was actually the direction in which Sakura had escaped. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 378. Savage beasts were an extremely barbaric race. Before the ancient times, during the Desolate Era, they were the main characters. They ran amok in the world, and their tempers were abnormally irritable. Usually, if they were provoked, they would be hunted down for thousands of miles. That was something that couldn't be more common. The Emperor Phoenix bird was a top-notch king-level existence on the first level. There were few who could rival them. This time, their own flesh and blood had been stolen, and they might even be eaten. It was already very good that they didn't go crazy on the spot. However, their persistence was terrifying. Unexpectedly, after the Sakura had released a trace of his aura, they had keenly sensed it and followed it for hundreds of thousands of miles. They had rushed to this place in incomparable speed, but they had found nothing. After being disappointed again and again, they had finally become completely furious and fell into a peak state. They no longer had any scruples and started to destroy everything. Everything in sight was within the range of their destruction. The forests, ancient trees, and hills were all flattened and turned into dust under the constant appearance of the hurricanes. Some savage beasts that couldn't escape in time were also killed by the hurricanes. Their bodies and bones were crushed in the hurricanes, and they died aggrieved deaths. Along the way, wherever they went, they destroyed. Not a single blade of grass was left behind. There was no sign of life. Gradually, in the midst of this destruction, the two Emperor Phoenix birds started to approach the valley Chertion was hiding in. However, because of the restrictions placed in the surroundings, Chertion still didn't notice that a powerful danger was quickly approaching him. Dark, since we have time now, tell me about the source seed of life. After the battle with the corpse-devouring flowers, I plundered hundreds of thousands of source seeds. From your tone, I can tell that this is no ordinary treasure. Tell me, what is the true use of this source seed? Chertion was multitasking. On one hand, he was using the book of Shocking Huangji. On the other hand, he hurriedly asked Dark in his body. He wanted to ask before, but he was interrupted by one thing after another. Until now, he was still very confused about the source seed of life. However, at least it was a treasure. Hundreds of thousands of source seeds? Ha! I'm rich now. Lunatic D, you've really struck it rich this time. Let me tell you, just these hundreds of thousands of source seeds are enough to make you the richest person in the world. Many experts will come to you and beg you to give them a source seed. Do you know what source seed is? It's the source of life, the most important primer for opening one's inner world. It's the best nourishment for one's inner world. Without it, even if one can open one's inner world, it can only be used as a domain. It will never be able to transform into a real world and allow life to grow inside. Compared to the inner world, a domain is just trash. Dark laughed wildly and arrogantly. The laughter caused the 19 layers of the nether prison to rumble and shake continuously. It could be seen that he was so excited that he couldn't even control his power. Inner world? Domain? Chertion mumbled to himself in confusion. His eyes suddenly flashed. He became very serious and asked in a low voice, Dark, I've read tens of thousands of books of the Monster Clan. I was lucky enough to create the Book of Shocking Emperor. However, I know that my Book of Shocking Emperor is not complete. It has a huge flaw. This flaw is because I can't completely understand the meaning of the domain and the inner world that appear when one reaches the ancient Monster King realm. If I can't understand it, I can't fully comprehend it. Therefore, my Book of Shocking Emperor is only complete when I reach the ancient Monster King realm. There are huge flaws in the later parts. I have to understand the inner world and the domain. Otherwise, I can't completely perfect this book. Chertion's voice had a trace of doubt in it. It was the first time he asked Dark for an answer. When he heard Dark talk about the inner world and the domain, his heart skipped a beat. He secretly felt that the question that had been troubling him for a long time might be answered today. He couldn't help but become very serious. Ha! After Dark heard this, he couldn't help but open his mouth and laugh crazily. He laughed until tears and snot ran down his face. He didn't look like the weapon soul of the Dark Book at all. I, I'm dying of laughter. It's so funny. I didn't expect there to be such an incredible joke in this world. A Monster Clan member who doesn't know the inner world and the domain can create such a shocking book like the Book of Shocking Emperor. I don't know if I should say that you're a genius among geniuses or that you're really brave. You really created such a wondrous book. Humph, you better tell me about the inner world and the domain quickly. Don't forget that you still need me to help you find the whereabouts of the dark book. Tian was a little embarrassed, but he immediately interrupted the ear-piercing laughter with a cold snort. TSK. It's no wonder. Even in the ancient times, the inner world and the domain were passed down by word of mouth. Normally, people wouldn't know about it unless they reached a certain level. Dark was interested as well. He held his head high and yelled, "Do you know why there's a word king between the king of monsters and the king of monsters? This word is the difference between the sky and the earth." A demon king, even the most ordinary demon king, under the demon king level, no matter how much of genius he is, unless he has a heaven-defying divine ability, otherwise it is absolutely impossible for him to win against the demon king. Of course, this does not include a monster like you. In these words, he directly excluded Sakura. It was obvious that in Dark's heart, he didn't see Tian as a normal person. That's a freak. Dark cursed inwardly. Damn it. How could an ordinary monster have such an incredible cultivation method like the Book of Shocking Emperor? An ordinary monster wouldn't dare to touch the power of desire. An ordinary monster could comprehend such a heaven-defying divine ability like the Eye of Heaven's punishment. Oh, why? Is it because of the domain and the inner world? Tian's mind spun quickly. He got straight to the point. Yes, it's the domain. Dark nodded without hesitation. The biggest difference between a monster king and a monster king is the domain and the inner world. The biggest difference between a fusion and a tribulation is also the domain and the inner world. This is because this is a necessary condition for advancement. Without the inner world, one will never be able to reach the Monster King level. This is an irreversible law of the world. Tian was shocked. He didn't know that the inner world was so important. I've read about the inner world and the domain in ancient books. However, no matter which ancient book it was, it didn't mention how to cultivate the domain and the inner world. That's why I couldn't understand it, even after thinking about it for a long time. I didn't expect them to be so important. Tian took a deep breath and sighed inwardly. Fortunately, he met Dark. Otherwise, he would have to spend a lot of effort to become an ancient monster king. He didn't even have the slightest clue. It would be a real injustice if he was stuck at this level forever, unable to make any progress for the rest of his life. Of course you can't know about this from those ancient books. Dark laughed strangely and said proudly, "As the saying goes, techniques can't be imparted easily. Don't think that just because you have a divine technique, you can cultivate a great divine technique. It's impossible to cultivate a peerless divine technique because there are some things that can't be described in ancient scrolls no matter what. Becoming a monster king from a monster king is the most crucial step. You can cultivate a domain, but the cultivation method of a domain can't be leaked unless you reach that level. However, a domain is born from the inner world. The inner world is the foundation. The cultivation method of the inner world is a secret that can't be passed down. To open up the inner world with one's own strength is like a mortal ascending to the heavens. No matter how great one's talent is, it's difficult to do so. One must have the most precious treasure in the world. Without it, the chances of cultivating the inner world are less than 1 in 10,000. Every sentence made Sakura inwardly suck in a breath of cold air. This was really too inconceivable. He already had a premonition that perhaps, only by truly cultivating the inner world, could one truly become a powerhouse. However, the difficulty of this task was unimaginable. I wonder how I'll be able to cultivate an inner world and create a domain. Tian didn't care about his face. He didn't feel ashamed to ask. There was nothing to be ashamed of. You can't cultivate the inner world unless you have the ability to go to the outer world to get the chaotic chi. So, it's impossible to open up the inner world by yourself. But there's more than one way. There's the most magical and greatest existence in the world, the first divine tree since ancient times, the world tree. When she spoke about the world tree, even Ming's tone carried a trace of respect and recollection. She said no one knows exactly how long the world tree has existed for. Some say that it has existed since the world was born, and it's the most ancient existence in the world. It's the greatest life. Every 10,000 years, a batch of world seeds would be born from its body. These world seeds are the most magical. They nurture the origin of a world. Di Shirtian listened to every word he said quietly. He didn't miss a single word. As time passed, he could not help but reveal a look of shock on his face. He finally understood what an incredible treasure the world tree and the world seed were. Putting the world tree aside, it was the divine tree of life, one of the two divine trees in the world. The seed nurtured by it contained the origin of a world. In other words, the seed contained the origin of a world. As long as all the origin of a world was stimulated, the seed would evolve into a unique world. In this world, one would be its master. It would be one's inner world. I'm writing in an internet cafe. I believe everyone knows what kind of environment an internet cafe is. It's so noisy that it's difficult to concentrate. It's an unbearable torture to write in this noisy environment. Besides, it's a new month. I hope those who have votes can vote for me. If you don't have a monthly vote, you don't need to pay for a recommendation. At least Drifting never stopped updating. I'm going to continue writing the second chapter in this noisy environment. To be continued. If you want to know more, please go to www.chitian.com. There are more chapters. I support the author. I support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.